Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Ashland Select Board meeting for March 20th, 2024. This meeting is being live streamed on WACA-TV and is also on the Zoom platform, and as chair, reserved the right to stop any participants who are, in my opinion, disrupting the meeting after one warning. Okay, so we will control both Zoom and in-person participants. All right, well, thank you all. So the first item on our agenda is, as usual, citizens' participation. And if people, so I see CC, Mark, do you want to do, okay. And anyone online there interested in citizens' participation? I see Joel's raising his thumb. All right, in his hand. Okay, so why don't yeah. I'm not seeing anyone else, so therefore I will start with Joel on the Zoom. So you can unmute, Joel, and also just a reminder that we're using basically 3 minutes per person. So go ahead, Joel.
You able to hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Yesterday at 11:06 p.m. right here on Ashland, spring began. And I want to highlight that while it means many different things to many different people, for me, it means that there will be far more bike riders out on the roads in Ashland and elsewhere. And last April, a new law went into effect that I want to ensure that we bring to all the drivers' attention, and I hope the select board and the town manager will help advertise this frequently. The new law says that drivers must provide at least 4 feet of space when they are passing a bike rider. If there's not enough room, it means they just have to wait. It's not optimal, but that's the law. The only option they have if they don't want to wait is to cross the center line, which is now legal, even if it's a double yellow center line, as long as it's safe to do so. Last January 7th, I sent an email to the select board and the town manager highlighting some of the many very good things that were done to improve bicycle safety as part of the downtown redevelopment project. I was very appreciative to see those changes. But I also highlighted that several of the changes that were made, in my view, have created an increased danger to bike riders. And I'm asking the board again to follow up with me and others who, whether they agree with my ideas or not, but to at least hear me out on the subject and take a careful look at what enhancements could be made. That's about it. Many of the towns that make big bicycle safety enhancements on their road, the busiest day for them of any other time of year is the day after an accident happens. That's when they jump on board and really take swift action. I hope we don't let that be the motivating force here in Ashland. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Joel. Okay, I'm looking. Cece, do you want to come up to the podium? And
Thank you. Cece Doucette, Director of Massachusetts for Safe Technology. And I appreciate that we've been having the conversation on technology safety here in Ashland. At the last meeting, Mr. Chair, you indicated that you would like to have the radio frequency meter to measure your home.
Yes.
And that you had been on vacation, and I know
still have it.
Officer Magnani, I know you had also been on vacation and indicated that you wanted to research the wireless radiation issue. So I'd like to ask if you've taken that time and what it is that you're finding.
I have to confess that I have not yet done it, Cece,
Okay.
so I'm sorry. But I'm this week, okay? I'll do
Okay.
it this week.
I'm a
All
third of the way through the report that you provided on your
Excellent.
link, and but it's slow because I've had eye surgery and I really can't see too well since that time. So everything's a blur.
Okay.
So
Well, please note that in my follow-up email, I also sent you a 20-minute video from Dr. Kent Chamberlain, who's the now Chair Emeritus of the University of New Hampshire, Computer and Electrical Engineering Department. He served on that commission as appointed by Governor Sununu, and he developed medical devices for much of his career. That was what his expertise was in, using radio frequency. And he thought it was going to be a slam dunk that, of course, wireless must be fine. Once he was appointed to the commission and began to investigate the peer-reviewed studies, now industry will tell you that, oh, they're cherry-picked. They went and did their due diligence. They partnered with the University of New Hampshire library system, and they vetted the science. And in that New Hampshire Commission report, you will find that this is peer-reviewed, published, highly credible science telling us that our children are in jeopardy in Ashland Public Schools. And one of the items I sent to you in my follow-up was a 20-minute video of Dr. Chamberlain walking you through the New Hampshire Commission report and their findings. So, Joe, if your eyes aren't great, just stop and listen. And
Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Chamberlain's slides are provided as well. He would gladly join me here to speak with you via Zoom. I offered that to Paul Kendall, who is heading up the building committee for the Mendez, where they put wireless access points on the ceiling of every single classroom. And the measurements I took there are extremely high. Those children are in jeopardy, as are our faculty and staff. I went to the meeting last night for the building committee, and I gave a 3-minute presentation, and I asked to be put on the agenda for their next meeting. And Paul Kendall replied today that no, he will not put me on the agenda. So we can't keep passing the buck. This is cumulative harm to our child. Every toxin is more toxic with dose, and every day we leave these kids exposed and sit here and scratch our heads as to why we are having anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, ADD, ADHD, Alzheimer's. This is all documented in the scientific literature. So, Rob, I appreciate that by next week, you will have used the radio frequency meter. I taught your daughter in CCD. We are stewards of this earth. And we need our public servants to step up and start the stewardship here. I've been talking to you guys about this for almost 10 years now, in which time we've only overexposed our children even more. So it's time. So if you guys don't step up, my next step is to go directly to the parents. And this is really bad optics on you guys, because I've gotten feedback from people who watched the last meeting when you said you guys didn't go measure. You didn't read the New Hampshire Commission report, except for Yolanda. So the optics are not looking good. Let's see what we can do. Let's partner together. I am a world expert on this topic now. So use what I have to offer, and let's educate the citizens and give them a choice in how to access technology safely. We don't want to take anybody's technology, but we should not leave our children marinating in electropollution inside of our schools. So,
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cece. Get back to you. All right, thank you. All right, Mark? I see we just have Joel. Can we put the...
Mackie, can we do a reset so that we don't just have Joel showing, but we have everyone?
Oh, my bad.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Am I all
Go
set?
ahead, yes.
You're all
Yeah,
set, Mark.
You're all set.
Okay. Mark Sony, 49 Hawthorne Road, Ashland, Mass. Good spring evening. I'm going to follow up a little bit, but I'm going to ask it in a different way for technology. The comprehensive plan. Can anybody answer? Because I sent out a email question message about what technology could be landed on it, if at all being talked about. And I sent out to our economic director, Beth, if some areas can have a hope being into this town. And she said, yeah, there's always hope. So I'm understanding organizational leadership, biotech, all the sciences, medical backgrounds and everything. Instead of just having this town look at it from what this town is now, why can't the town be a future endowment for people coming through and the elders to be living through a town that has a medical superiority for others? Why can't the comprehensive plan have a technology thought? That's my question.
I'll take it. I think, Mark, as we're doing the comprehensive plan, we're certainly looking at everything. And I think if I'm understanding your comment correctly, is how can we incorporate the discussion of technology in the comprehensive plan as we're looking at the different areas? And I would think that as we do it, we will look if there's anything technologically related that we need to bring in. Like I said, if I'm understanding it correctly. From a business perspective, certainly if we want more medical here in town, we need to work at having space for medical. And I know Beth is always looking to bring new businesses into town.
And for that to be, that was an aim at that. But the answer I'm looking for is, instead of words, can't there be some sort of a direction to put forth to have this town become 2025 viable more than what it is now?
I think that's part of the plan, right? What do people want to see and where? It's going to be part of the plan. But as I said, I think technology will be included in what do people want to see in their downtown? Do they, I think it'll be part of the plan.
Okay, and last thing for the town manager is, that's my basic thinking, that I've been known to say to you about the businesses, what my aim has been for, what, a couple of years now? Yeah, so, and with Beth, about the businesses, having them come in and having shown what the town can be and how it will be planned for. And for this area of state colleges with their graduates, they take up a lot of those plans in the courses, and they have internships, hopefully, in this town that can take them in to go forward with. That's it.
All right, thanks, Mark. All right, anyone else for citizens' participation before we go into our agenda items? I don't see any hands raised, okay. All right, so our first presentation is on the water sewer capital needs and potential discussion vote on various enterprise funds, to wit the water, sewer, and trash fees and bag fees, which are, okay. So I will, and I think we talked about Dan and Becca doing their presentation first on the, because I like to think it might be a little quicker than the following discussion on all the rates, but so come on up, and thank you for doing this. And I understand why you guys are setting up that. There was a tour of the water treatment plan that Dan led, and I think you two were there, and I'm not sure, Claudia and Randy.
Yeah. It was,
I missed it, but be good to hear about what you saw there.
It was very educational. And I think the first time I had been in the plant was probably a year or two after it was open, when I was a school committee member. So to see the status of our facility in that short a time, it's understandable why we are having this discussion about some of these capital needs.
Go ahead, Dan, whenever you're ready.
All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us. Just going to run through, hopefully, a quick slideshow here for you.
Just for people watching, Dan Marr is the water superintendent, correct? That's your title? Did I get it right? Very
General
good.
Foreman /
Okay.
superintendent.
And you're joined here by Becca,
Becca Navarro.
and she's a town engineer?
She's our water and sewer engineer.
Oh, she's not going to be the town engineer, okay. Keep her for water sewer. Okay, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
It took me a long time to get her, so don't take her away
Yes,
just
okay.
yet. So. Nope.
There we go, spacebar.
Spacebar, gotcha. So basically, this is just a quick slide giving you a quick overview of all the different projects that we have, and I kind of go into a little bit more detail on all of these, throughout the slideshow. But this just gives you an idea of what we're looking at as we move forward. So we'll start out with the ozone replacement is one of the big items that we're facing right now. You can see some of the photographs here of the ozone. This is in the water treatment plant, the ozone system. You can see some of the pictures show that it's starting to deteriorate. There's some, on the left lower corner is a repair clamp that had to be put on the stainless steel pipe because it was actually leaking. There's a few repair clamps that are throughout the system. There's some active leaking on it. During the tour, you can see, they could see where the staining on these tanks from where it had been, water had been leaching out of the vessels. So these are the contact vessels. So the ozone system's like the teeth, you know, that's the first part of the water treatment plant. This is what knocks out all the pathogens, all the iron and manganese, and gets the process going. So with this, that's where a bigger part of our water quality comes from. Some of the effects of it is the stainless steel, just the natural, the way ozone works, it's attacking the stainless steel and it burns the carbon out of it, which is causing the little pinhole leaks. And then just the treatment plant was built back in 2000, so life expectancy of the plant and some of these items within the plant is about 20 years, so we're about 22, 23 years out of it at this point. So another part of it here is the top left is our SCADA system. That's a supervisory control and data acquisition system. This is what actually controls the plant and all of our stations. This talks directly to our computers. This will give us call-outs during the nighttime when things aren't staffed. So if we have an issue with the treatment plant or any of the stations throughout the town, this lets us know what's going on with everything, with the 14 different stations that we have in town. It also is continuously monitoring when the treatment plant is running. It's continuously monitoring all the water quality, different monitors throughout the treatment plant. It also gives us remote access 24/7, so we can dial in on our phones or computers and see what's going on. This also is part of the cyber security now that's being mandated through the DEP. So we have to make sure that we keep these systems upgraded to stay within compliance. So this is getting into our water main replacements. 60 to 70% of our distribution system is transite or asbestos cement pipe. Came out in the 1940 to 1970s is when it was installed typically, with a 50-year life expectancy. With the service taps, there's a saddle that goes on. Then you do the service tab. Typically, we either have a failure at the joint where the picture shows you where the joint failed, or we have a failure at the service tap where that saddle pops off. So over the years, in the treatment plant, we have 4 high lift pumps to fill up the tanks within our system. And because the system's so fragile now, we have to run 1 pump at a lower rate and fill the tanks very slowly. Otherwise, we'll cause water breaks throughout the town. So with that comes added cost because we have to run the treatment plant longer, so you have longer run times, longer energy use and everything else. Right now, we run the plant typically about 3 days filling the tanks, and then we have a 24 to 48 hour period where it shuts down and we use the water out of our storage tanks. And we're seeing about 2 to 3 failures a month right now, average throughout the year. Usually the summer it's like a Friday at 2:30. This is our short list where we kind of compiled. We had a master study done with an engineering firm, Haley Ward, that helped us put together a 20-year plan for all the different replacements that we should do throughout town. This is kind of our short list of what we're looking at in the near future. So these are kind of our top projects. So the engineering is complete for all these. So these are basically, once you decide whether or not want to fund the projects, these are ready to hit the street and get construction going. This is our water meter replacement program. So throughout town, obviously, all our services, we have about 7,000 services throughout town. People have anything from a regular domestic meter to irrigation meter. We found we have some unregistered meters that we're coming across when we're doing surveys or replacing meters. We deal with the leaks, which then reach into abatements where we try to help the residents if they had a problem with the toilet running or something like that. Or you can see where the spigot on the side of the house exploded in the cold and caused a big iceberg on the side of the house. Obviously, meter accuracy.
Sorry, I couldn't tell what that picture was until you said that it
Yeah,
was.
so that was a spigot on the side of the house that had burst, and it just, the water from
Was
spraying, it
creating
just
cold.
froze and just created quite a nice ice sculpture.
Yeah.
But, meter accuracy is really important. I mean, this is our revenue for our enterprise fund. So it's important to keep these meters replaced and keep the billing accurate and move away from, try and get away from some of the estimated billings. And the last picture shows, unfortunately, a part where we have some theft, where somebody had actually put a bypass around the meter. And then they had valves where they could throttle it, so they would only get charged so much. The rest of it would bypass around the meter. So these are the things that we're
Really?
dealing with. Yeah. Yeah.
And I have to say, the meter replacement process is not difficult, because I think ours was done, I don't know, like 2 or 3 years ago, so it's.
Typically, it's not.
easy.
Sometimes it's challenging depending
Yeah.
on where they put the meter. Sometimes we come across where it's hard piped, which means they didn't use the proper fittings. So then they have to have a plumber come back.
Or it's behind a wall in a finished basement, or, yeah,
Or, yeah, a water heater or something like that got in the way.
understairs.
We'll keep moving on. Our tank program, this is a picture of this Cedar Street tank. So the Cedar Street tank was built in 1968, has 2.6 million gallons capacity. We inspect it and clean it every 3 to 5 years. And you can see from the pictures here on the outside, obviously the coatings are starting to fail, but also on the inside, there's a ceramic coating, and that's starting to fail as well. So instead of going to 5 years, we're going to 3 years. We're going to have it inspected just to see how far we can continue to push this out. But as you can tell from the pictures, it's starting to be in pretty rough shape, and we need to address it.
What was the life expectancy? You're saying it was built in 1968?
1968. So as long as they're maintained properly, they'll last a long, long time. When they have the inspection done, they have a way to measure the thickness of the gauge of the metal to make sure that the metal's not deteriorating to cause fatigue where it could have a failure. So
Okay.
our other tank is the Woodridge tank that was built in 1989. That's a concrete tank, so it's a little bit different. It's 4.3 million gallons. This tank, we have actually a valve that we can control through our SCADA system to be able to fill the Cedar Street tank. With both tanks online, we can't facilitate one and the other, so we're able to control that. Again, this is on the 3 to 5 year where we're cleaning them, but you can see the spalling and checking on the concrete on the outside. And again, this will be inspected again this year to see where we're at with this, but it has some graffiti on it. Post 9/11, when we do our sanitary survey every 3 years, they recommended that we put a fence up around this. So I didn't want to push to have it painted until we get a fence around it, so that we don't paint it and get graffiti back on it again before we have a chance to secure it.
So is that on the capital list to put fencing around it, or?
It is.
Okay, for when, what year?
We had some funding to do it this past year, so
Okay.
we're working on that. This is our new Independence Lane pump station, just to show you what they look like when they're nice and brand new. This was put online in summer 2022. This has the VFD drives with all the SCADA controls. The VFD drive is basically a drive that can be controlled similar like your dimmer switch for your light. You can start it slowly and you can crank it up, make it go faster, so that it's a variable rate. So that gives you an idea of what the station looks like when they're new. And then the next slide shows our Ledgmere station, which is one of our older stations off of Bay Colony Road. It was scheduled to be decommissioned years ago when we did the Brackett Road and the Framingham connection, when they redid it. So as part of the MWRA agreement, in order to increase our capacity, we have to do more work in Framingham, so that's a whole different animal. So whether or not we're going to do a treatment facility in town, look for alternative methods to deal with getting rid of our wastewater. But you can see the station's it's deteriorating, it needs help, and that one's on the capital plan to be replaced.
To be replaced. So at one point you were going to decommission it, but it's going to be replaced?
As part of the MWRA agreement, they'd like us to get rid of it, but this station takes the flow from the Pond Street side of town and skips it over to Chestnut Street.
Yeah.
If we get rid of that station, all that flow goes through Brackett Road, and we don't have the capacity in Framingham to do that right now.
So this is wastewater, not?
This is wastewater.
Oh, okay.
Correct. We don't have the capacity to go through Framingham, through the Brackett Road station right now. In order to increase that, we'd have to do, I don't know what the exact number is, but it's millions of dollars worth of infrastructure work in Framingham to be able to increase that capacity and get rid of that station. So I don't see the station going away anytime soon.
And there's work being done there now, right? I passed it on the way here. Is this
So-
a Bay Colony? Yeah.
Yes, so as part of the 501 Pond Street project, that was Fafford property. Fafford back in the day was supposed to connect that to the main line so we can go to Brackett Road.
Yeah.
It was never finished, so as part of the agreement for that 501 Pond Street, they're finishing that connection now.
Oh, they are.
So which will be good because
Okay,
that gives
that
us a
was my
fail-safe on that. If that station never fails, we're not gonna have an SSO. It'll go gravity right to Brackett Road to save us from having wastewater discharge all over the place.
Yeah.
This just gives you an idea of this basically mimics the water side of the capital overview. It's the sewer side of it. So we'd obviously split it, the costs that are both shared with water and sewer. So the skate upgrades, because it's a shared system, the I&I program. So the I&I program's the next piece coming up that we're working on right now. That's for basically stormwater removal out of the sewer system, because we're paying for stormwater to go through the sewer. So we're trying to obviously remove that. That is funded through 75% through the MWRA, 25% we end up paying for. So we're in pretty good shape with that, and we're working on that right now. But again, that's just to make sure we're not paying to have stormwater treated as sewer. This is just a quick comparison that MWRA does. They put out a rate comparison throughout the towns. So you can see with the water piece of it, we're very low. We're on the very low side. Unfortunately, on the sewer side, we're one of the higher ones. That's due to the Framingham charge. We kind of refer to it as the Framingham hostage fee, but we use it as our sewer has to transport through Framingham's pipes, so they charge us, unfortunately, just about as much as the MWRA does to treat our sewer. So if there's a way that we could mitigate that, it would certainly be a huge savings.
Sewer treatment facility plant would work.
I'm sorry?
A sewer treatment facility plant would work,
Certainly would.
because the money we pay Framingham is the money we could possibly put into the payments of the building.
Absolutely. You'd pay for it real
And I
quick.
think I said that about 10 years ago.
I think that's a whole other discussion, the
No, it is, but I
wastewater
mean,
treatment and how
it's-
we're gonna handle it.
All the questions.
Yeah.
Are you at the end of your
am.
presentation, Dan? Okay. Thanks. So questions, thank you. I did see, well, I guess, as I think you were just saying, we saw that large item of $10 million in capital for water. Is that a sewage treatment plant? So I
Right.
guess at some
Well,
point, we're not dealing with that tonight, are the rates
Correct.
with that? Okay.
That's more for the alternative.
Yeah.
We have to figure out a way to, we're either going to have to spend money in Framingham to increase our capacity, we're going to have to do our own treatment plant, or do our own connection to MWRA to try and mitigate those sewer costs.
And I would think $10 $10 million is more of a direct MWRA connection, right? Because a wastewater treatment plant, 10 years ago, we were hearing 20, 30 million, so.
There's
I would
kind of a
think-
placeholder, more so probably realistically is going to be the Framingham, doing the work in Framingham to upgrade that.
But then we
I
have
know
to
we've
pay
got-
through directly to We're then paying Framingham to be able to use their service still, right?
That would be able to increase our capacity, so then we wouldn't have to worry about doing a sewer moratorium to, stop building and stuff like that. So.
I guess the question I would have, and certainly not something in the near term, but at some point, can we look at, I know we've talked about potential connecting directly with the MWRA for our sewer. So through potentially Southborough, what would that cost look like? What would increasing our capacity through Framingham and continue to pay through Framingham look like? And then what would it be to do our own wastewater treatment plant? And again, I know it's one of those things that obviously a wastewater treatment plant would probably be more expensive short-term, but long-term, would it be beneficial? So I think it would be good to
I'm not sure that
do that
Southborough's an
review.
option to connect for MWRA. They are for water, but I don't believe they are for sewer.
Oh,
They are sewer?
They don't have sewer.
Yeah, they don't have sewer.
they don't have sewer.
No, so our only
Oh, okay.
option is Framingham.
Is
or-
only Framingham.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think Doug has already done some preliminary work at
I
looking
thought
at
so,
the
so-
direct connection, and Doug admirably, I think, tried to get the MWRA to see if they would pay for it. And not surprisingly, they declined.
Imagine that.
So,
I was going to say, why is Doug here? Does he have a speech prepared as well? or
Doug always
presentation?
has a speech prepared, just in case. Doug is at a presentation at 8:50.
Oh, okay. Want to get it straight. Oh, thanks. So he wears many hats here. Okay.
Well, and he I would think there isn't, water is under our Public Works Department, so.
Correct.
Sure. While we were on that, I did notice, when I could talk about it when Brittany gets her presentation, but she did have kind of a placeholder for the Framingham cost and a question about what it was going to be. And I guess last year it was 800,000, and this year she's budgeting the usual amount. But I was going to ask, can we find out, or can we get projections? Like, why is it kind of an unknown number?
It's usually done in arrears, essentially. Is that accurate?
Usually they
think-
send us an estimated, what they project our sewer capacities to be, so they give us an idea how much it's gonna be, and then what the actuals are, they'll discount that if we overpaid. So our final payment, they'll discount the final payment.
That's for the sewage we're sending through.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
The problem is like when we have the water storms, we have the big I&I spikes.
Oh, right.
That kicks up our gallonage really high, so it gives them a false number that they kind of calculate their numbers off of.
Given how much rain we have.
So
Right,
if we have a
right.
lot of rain, it enters
So-
the wastewater system, all of a sudden Brackett Road and Chestnut Street are surged, and they're just pumping a huge amount of volume in one day.
Because of all the extra water.
And they look at those little spikes, and they kind of average that out, and that kind of hurts us with our estimated values.
So this might not be a question for you, but maybe for Doug. Do we have a long-term plan in regards to replacing all of our pipes that are being impacted by I&I?
We're doing an aggressive I&I program right now,
Right,
so
but do we have do we know what we've done? Do we know what's next? And do we have a
Yes.
plan so that
do.
we can put out to the public, okay, this is our plan to get everything updated in the next 3 years, 5 years, 7? I mean, how long is it gonna take us?
So right now, we did a pilot program where we put sensors in the manholes,
Mm-hmm.
and it reads how much water is going through there during certain times of the day. And then Haley Ward analyzed that. We came back, and a couple years ago, did smoke testing, and
Right, I
that shows where
remember
you
that.
have connections or places where the water could penetrate into the system. And then this year, we're working on doing the repairs, facilitating all
Okay.
those repairs. And that's where the MWRA pays 75% of that, and we're on the hook for 25% of that. So that's going out to bid.
Well, no, I know that we've been doing the work. I guess my question is, do we know what needs to be repaired? How much needs to be repaired?
Yes.
And do we have a plan to get it done? And is it gonna be 1 year, 2 year, or 5 years to complete all the work?
4 years? Yeah, go ahead.
So, the stuff that Dan just talked about, that was kind of like the preliminary,
Right.
identify some of the repairs that need to be done. So this year, we're gonna put out to bid phase 1 of 4.
Okay.
And if phase 1 goes smoothly, we might be able to kind of merge some of the other phases together, because phase 1 was our largest kind of area with identified issues. But part of phase 1 is also doing some more inspection to identify further issues that may be there.
Okay.
So this is kind of going to be our pilot year of really going through to fix the issues. And depending on how that goes, it's going to kind of set us up for the next 3 or 4 years.
So, so there is a potential plan in place, and it's looking at 3 to 4 years?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And
Thank you.
Is this under the stormwater part of things, or is this, what
This
is
is
it?
through sewer.
Okay.
And in the I&I program, as much as we have a dedicated 4-year plan, it's an ongoing thing because infrastructure fails all the time.
Right.
So it's an ongoing
Yeah.
program that we just have to
Something you didn't
continue to do.
identify breaks, then you're going to go fix that first, obviously, because we don't want to leak or.
It goes
yeah.
anything from manhole covers in the street that are cracked or broken or not sealed properly, and you get a puddle around it, and that's the source of I&I as well.
All right. Well, thank you, Dan. If there's
Let's
no
see
other,
if I don't know
Oh,
if
yeah.
Brandy or Claudia have any questions.
So,
Brandy, go ahead if you want to, is she unmuted?
Can you
Go ahead,
hear me
Brandy.
okay?
Yep, now we
Can you
can.
hear?
Go ahead.
Okay. So first of all, thank you, Dan. I was part of the walkthrough of the water treatment plant with Dan and Jeff last week, and it was my first time through. And I think, as a resident, you just automatically assume that the water that comes out of your tap is clean and in good shape, but you don't really think about sort of the process behind it. And so for me, it was very clear just how sort of scientific and how much we rely on technology and all these components to be able to ensure that our residents have clean drinking water. And so first of all, I just wanted to say thank you for all the work that you guys do to ensure that, because it's probably without doubt one of the most important things that we can provide for residents without even people really kind of realizing it. So that's the first thing. So I was looking through some of the backup that we got in our packets for the meeting, and I just had a question about the Cedar Street tank and what year you think that it's going to be needing to be, painted and serviced. I know you said that they're looking to do an inspection, but I think I had a question about like what year it was supposed to hit on our I think we had like a 3 or 4 year plan, and I wasn't sure if it was because I think the estimate was like 1.7 million, I believe, and I wasn't sure if that was going to be planned for FY26 or FY27, or if it's still like to be determined.
We were still kind of to be determined depending on how that inspection report comes out.
Okay.
In all honesty, we were hoping to be able to kick it out, 4 to 5 years with everything that we have going on. I mean, we weren't expecting the water treatment plant to need this amount of work to be done to it, and we do need to get going on at least start the process of replacing some of the water mains and getting some of this infrastructure up to date. So
Right.
if we can push it off, we'll push it off, but only if it makes sense and only if the report says that, it's safe to do so.
Okay. And I know at our last meeting, we talked a little bit about the ozone replacement and just how crucial that component is to having clean drinking water. And so I know that is sort of like your first priority to get that replaced and kind of up to snuff. And then obviously the sort of like the longer term plan with the water mains and some of the other upgrades that need to happen. So, I know I've been on the board 5 years, and we really haven't done any, as far as I know, like major infrastructure investments into our water sewer. And it sounds like, this is sort of the time that we really need to make sure that we invest in the system. So from your perspective, this is sort of I know we were kind of talking about the sewer, the question down the road of how we are going to handle that. But from an infrastructure standpoint, I think it's important to kind of have a to Yolanda's point, to make sure that we communicate out sort of the long-term plan for all the infrastructure investment, because it's such an important component of what needs to happen. And I think people don't think about that nearly enough. And I know I haven't up until this year. So, the more information we have, the better.
Great.
So the one thing I can add to that for you, Brandy, is that the ozone system is like I said, it's the teeth of the plant. That is our first hardcore source of removal of all these contaminants. Every year there's more contaminants coming up. Right now the big scare is the PFAS. We're fortunate, we have very little, we have trace of it in our raw water. We have zero of it coming out of our finished water in our plant. So, and that's the ozone and the GAC filters working together to do that. If the ozone fails and we have to go to Plan B, the Plan B's going to put a lot more wear and tear on the filters, a lot more wear and tear on the rest of the plant, and you're not going to get the quality of the water that you're receiving now. So just add to that. And as far as the wastewater alternative, I just think it's important to keep that up front and just keep discussing it. Obviously it's a big number and you try and figure it out, but as long as you stay aware of it and not kind of tuck it in the back room and say, well, we can't do anything with that. Just see if there is something we can do.
All right, thanks, Dan.
Just one last thing, as Joe said, I remember when I was probably my first year on the board, first year, we started having a discussion about wastewater and what we were going to do. We had a really good presentation, and other things have, sort of bubbled up as to what were priorities. So I think we're at the point where we need to start speaking seriously about what we're going to do.
Yeah, we talked about using the Girl Scout camp as a leaching
Quarry.
bed, the leaching field. So I mean, that's how far the discussions had gone to.
Yep,
Right.
that's
So,
why we bought it.
Right, that's one of the reasons why we bought it, and where we have, water lines right on Alder Street. I mean, that water could be put right into that system type of deal, so.
To speak to your point too, is we have the aggregate property coming up soon too.
Right,
Correct.
That was,
Correct.
it was a
Right,
joint
right,
process.
The joint process, and there are other
And
towns that
Girl
could possibly utilize that plant as well to help pay for that down the
Just
road.
one
So-
thing we got, one of the things we got to remember, first of all, is we need to get DEP approval.
Approval.
Right.
No,
Right.
I
I mean,
do.
I mean,
understand.
all of the-
That's number one. So number two, the other thing we have to think about is it's not just the treatment facility itself. You got to get the sewage there.
Right.
So you,
Oh, of course.
you got to look at replacing piping.
Adding piping to get it there.
Yeah, adding piping, pump
Yeah, sure, it's a
stations.
huge
or,
project.
all of.
Just
it's
a question,
pretty
Dan, you
expensive.
mentioned aggregate, sorry to interrupt, but, and I remember there's did you say it's going to be in our hands soon, or how is that?
2027 or 28.
Yeah, I think
So the
2027,
timing
so
is
it's 3 or
pretty
4
good,
years.
sounds
it's
like,
coming up
okay,
fairly
good
quickly.
point.
So.
So, thanks, Dan, and thanks for that presentation.
very
I
welcome.
think
Yes,
we're
thanks,
all understanding the need for good infrastructure when it comes to water and sewer, for that matter, and storm drains. So I'm presuming, and from looking at the capital plan, that it's incorporated in the material that Brittany's bringing to us tonight. So that's it,
Thank you very
and that's
much.
what we'll be discussing that. So
Thank you,
thank you,
Samantha.
Dan, and thank you, Becca, for that. So I guess, are we ready for Brittany and the presentation? I think it'll take about 5 minutes, right? Is that what you were thinking? Yeah,
15.
15, 20 minutes.
All right, let's just
So just,
find it.
just a process question.
This one first.
How do people want to, so she's got 3 major areas to talk about, right? So we're going to start with trash and the trash fees, and that'll revisit that discussion. And then I believe we're going to do sewer and then water. So I think I'm going to suggest, as Brittany goes through the presentation, if people have clarifying or quick questions,
Yeah,
it's
if we
probably
could,
good to ask
her
then.
questions along the way.
Yeah, and then we'll wait for discussion. I guess the question I would ask, do we want to take each of these in turn as she goes, or wait for the end and then talk about all 3 at once? What are we thinking here would be, and Brandy, speak up, and if Claudia's, in terms of,
Claudia may
I
have
think we'll have some
stepped away.
detailed questions for each one. So I don't know, I'm just throwing out the idea, do we want to deal with the rate issue all together at the end, or just talk about each one as she finishes each major area?
I think it would make sense to speak about each one as we go through it, and then,
And then at the end, we can
and
try
then at the
to,
end, see
tie
what
it
we
up.
got.
Okay.
Yep.
so go ahead, Brittany. So you're going to do trash, just in the same order you sent it to us, trash and then
I was
sewer
gonna do
and
water
water?
and
Oh, all
sewer
right.
first,
We'll
because
do water and sewer,
all the visuals
okay.
are in your mind right now.
Yeah, okay, very
I figured we
good.
would just start with water and sewer.
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, this is a very quick presentation for water and sewer. Most of the data is in the memos, updated data from when they were previously done.
And also, just that we all know, Claudia won't be asking questions because she's not in a private area where she can do that. So
Right.
she's listening, but she can't actively
All right,
participate.
thank you for that. And I do want to say, this was a very thorough and detailed presentation with a lot of information, so thank you, Brittany, for that. It's a lot to go through. I think, you tried to cover all the bases with a lot of information, so certainly appreciate that.
Yeah, the memos are very detailed. The slides are, it would be a lot if I put the memo in a slide format, but.
Okay,
Just one last thing. Can we make sure that all this information gets put, after our meeting today, even though it might be draft,
Yes.
gets posted up so that people who are listening and watching can find this
Oh, yeah, I
detailed
thought it was already in
information?
the.
It's
Yeah,
up right
I
now.
Is it all up there already? Okay, perfect.
And we've been doing that, right? We've been posting the backup, which I think is excellent,
Okay,
so,
great.
great.
Thank you.
Oh, so it's sewer. Okay, so we can start on sewer. How do I go back? All right, we'll start with sewer. So FY '25 revenues were projected to be obviously a little bit less than expenses. So the deficit for FY '25 for sewer is approximately 418,000. So as you can see below that, these are the projected deficits for sewer in subsequent years for a 5-year forecast. Let me get rid of this. Oh, this is annoying.
And this is at current rates.
This is at current rates, yes. So this was just a quick analysis on the next 5 years, incorporating in all of the capital needs for sewer, with exception of an alternative plan for wastewater. So all the capital needs and the developments that are proposed in the memo, current other revenue usage. So this is what I would propose for rate increases over the next 5 years to meet our expenditures. So FY '25, I'm recommending a 3% increase. That would generate about 175,000 in revenue, and then also using retained earnings of 245. So the dollar impact to a ratepayer would be approximately $27. And then going forward, you can see the impact on future years as to what it would be. So 27 and 28, we would, this would be annual. Yep.
Why would you not recommend a smaller increase, 27 and 28, so we don't have to do as large of an increase in 29?
Well, 29 is only a 1% increase.
Okay.
So I didn't really think that was
But
drastic.
that being said, I
But-
think we have to maybe relook at that, Brittany, just because I don't think we want to get in a situation where we're currently in, where we haven't done rate increases and we have a big one due. So
Yeah, I
just
mean, we can
something
certainly
have to
do
think about.
2% increases every year, whether we need it that year or not, just so there's not a 4% increase in one year, because the sewer bill, like everyone knows, has a greater impact on the bill than water does. So for this enterprise fund, that's why I was recommending the hybrid approach for using retained earnings and a rate increase to get to where we need to be.
Brittany, just, what's the retained, you had, is it 2 million or 4 million of retained revenue for that?
In sewer,
Yeah,
let me double check.
one of them's almost,
It is about 2 million.
okay. All right.
So Brittany, quick question for you. I was just looking through the memo, and the 2024 Framingham assessment ended up being lower than we expected, or however,
Yeah.
So when we billed out for 2024, did that take that into account, or did extra go into retained earnings, or how did that work?
So extra would have gone into retained earnings, but if we had any revenue shortfalls that year, we would have absorbed those savings in FY '24. Also, in previous years, I was able to get a preliminary estimate from Framingham, usually in January or February. They've had some turnover there, and I'm not able to really get the information I used to be able to obtain in prior years. And then also looking just at the trend, there is no trend. It's up, it's down, and I thought for forecasting sake, just being level would be
Yeah.
better for rate setting purposes, instead of 1 year it's 800,000, and then, oh, great, FY '26, we need to budget for 1.5 million. You know, what do you do? You'll use half our retained earnings and a massive rate increase. So I think using just a flat number would be
I think that makes sense.
advantageous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we should,
And so-
hopefully we get
and then-
clarification on that. Sorry, Brandy, go ahead.
Okay, no, I just wanted to kind of just talk a little bit about, because I don't know if maybe we have, so if we have, I apologize, but I think it's worth just kind of mentioning, sort of, I know Dan had kind of raised it too, but like the whole financial arrangement with Framingham for sewer, you know, and we pay quite a bit to them, which is why sewer is so much higher than water. You know, I don't know, Brittany or Michael, if you guys want to just give a 30-second background as to why that rate is so high and why we pay that much to Framingham, just for background for folks.
Just very briefly, at one point, the town was paying Framingham $5,000 for that charge. Framingham, in the early 2000s, wanted to raise that to $50,000. The town of Ashland didn't think that was fair and denied paying that, and so it ended up being litigated and going through an administrative hearing through the Department of Public Utilities, and unfortunately we lost that, and now we have to pay like a percentage of the flow fees as well as a percentage of like capital projects as well. So that's why it's so high.
And that figure's now a little close to $1 million.
It's a little over $1 million, and then because you got to factor in because of the Herbert Street, and that's part of the IMA, or it's not
separate-
named after me, folks. Just want to make that clear. That's part of it as well. So I think in total it's probably like 1.2.
Yeah,
1.1.
that's what
Yeah,
Brittany's
yeah, at the
budgeting.
highest, it's been 1.4.
But you're saying it goes up and down,
It goes up and down
right?
every year, it seems, and it's based upon, they're in arrears, they look at prior year. So if we had a new development coming on this year, it's not gonna get captured until a year or two later. So I would anticipate that 24, I would anticipate 25 going up. We just don't have the assessment yet.
Okay.
Any more questions on sewer, or do you want to stay on sewer?
Yeah, well, it's,
Go back, yeah.
I don't know how to go back. Oh, boy.
I did, Brittany, you did, so this does include some use of some retained revenue, right? What was the number? Two something?
295?
So we have,
45 of retained
okay,
earnings.
so we have, of course, a lot more than that, but I know you're recommending we don't use it. I guess I want to push at that a little bit, because what is it you're concerned about keeping such a large balance when we,
I'm mainly concerned about any future capital projects, and with the wastewater alternative not being known, we'll want all the retained earnings we can have for the future. So that's a major unknown, doing this type of forecast.
but we're also we're budgeting our capital projects, so how much retained,
Well, we do have
earnings.
debt service too for capital projects. It's not just
Yeah.
pay as you go, we have debt service as well.
right, so that's part of the budget, I guess is what I'm saying. Retained earnings are, you know, they're basically, we don't have a current use for them if we're not budgeting them. We're keeping them against a rainy day, I guess. And I guess the question is for us as elected officials, what do we want to do? Charge people and through their rates, or spend this, really what is revenue surplus from past years? In my, you know, that's the way I am kind of looking at it. So I know it's good to be conservative and keep those cushions,
Yep.
but we're also, like, how much do we want to ask people to pay versus if we already have the funds, how much of that we want to use? And I think it is good that you put some of it in here and used it. I guess the question is how much and, you know, how do we
Yeah, so there
approach
is, on page 8, the capital projects are on page 8. Or was it page 8?
So,
for sewer.
the
Yeah,
proposed
page
sewer.
7 and, yeah,
This
page 8.
page, yeah.
yeah, I mean, I can just add a little bit. I think there's three, actually, unknowns that could, catch up with us pretty quickly. And, one is the Framingham and the MWRA assessments, right? I mean, those could be, who knows with a really rainy, year that we just had, if that's going to be extremely high and we're going to see a spike more towards like the
But you're going to call the
1.4
mayor
million.
and fix it if that
We'll
happens.
we'll fix that.
So,
The other thing is, I mean, we do have some very, very old infrastructure in certain places. And, you look at the Ledgmere station, and although we've got some planned upgrades, you saw just from the pictures just the kind of condition it's in. What if something happens to that's a little bit more catastrophic is probably a strong word, but I'll use that term, catastrophic in nature, and we need to do something quickly. Retained earnings would give us a little bit more of a cushion to do that stuff. But I totally understand what you're saying. I don't know where that sweet spot is.
Well, I guess, I think about our other financial policies, right? We say we want to have an X amount in our rainy day fund. Is there a policy, or maybe not that we have, but is there a good basis to say, okay, you want to have X amount in your retained earnings based on the size of your sewer and water departments or your town? Or, is there something out there that gives us a guideline as to what we should be holding in our retained earnings based on what our community does for water and sewer?
Yeah, it's not clear guidance, and then they always have this caveat, it's town by town basis.
Right.
Depending upon your capital plan. So, again, the alternative to the wastewater, that's a huge project, and just looking at the retained earnings, we only had 484,000 just a few years ago.
Right.
So we've been able to build it up
Right.
through, obviously, rate increases, and we've had savings in certain areas, but,
Well, it must have been through savings, because we haven't done a large amount of rate
well,
increases.
we've had vacancies in certain areas, so that we had
Okay.
turnbacks from salaries lines, or maybe some projects weren't able to be done due to just resource staffing.
Okay.
So we've had turnbacks due to that. So I wouldn't anticipate there being any turnbacks if these projects can get underway. We wouldn't be adding to retained earnings.
Right.
And one thing, so you're recommending option 4, a 3% increase for this year, which
Yep.
would be an average impact of about $27 a year, is that correct?
Yes.
An
Yeah.
increase? Okay. So I'm periodically trying to look at Brandy to see if she wants to say something, so. Well, further discussion or
I
questions?
appreciate that.
Sure.
No, I think for me, that answers my sewer questions.
So,
Yeah, I guess my only question is like, because looking through the retained earnings, I feel like if we can safely utilize a little bit more of the retained earnings and take that dollar increase down a little bit, I would feel better if we could minimize the impact to residents, because we're talking about like the water. So my stance is the water stuff we need, because we need the infrastructure investment now. The sewer stuff is a little less, like I get that we have a shortfall that we have to meet, but it seems like if we could utilize a little bit more retained earnings and decrease the impact to residents a little bit more, I would feel like that was a better decision for us if we can do that, because it is going to be a major water investment that we're going to have to do this year.
So something like option 3, Brandy, which brings the average increase down below $20, is that kind of
Yeah.
what you're thinking?
with a little more.
Yeah.
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 Interesting.
So sorry, I'm like working on like one screen trying to look
Sure,
between
yeah.
the back.
Yeah. And
The
I mean,
zones.
and to the point, we're looking at 3 different funds here tonight, so all with different requests, so.
Especially if you're gonna have 2 years where you're not increasing it. to do a blanket right across the board, so that way the years that you were expecting to be higher, if you to lower it, at least you can
Smooth that
bring it,
out.
smooth it out, and
Yeah.
like you were saying about a plateau, go directly right across. At least you have an idea what your fixed costs are going to be,
Right.
without any anticipated, catastrophes that come down the road.
And
Which is
residents
why
can
we have
budget.
the retained earnings set aside
I
for
think
that.
if it's more consistent,
Right,
it's
be
better.
more consistent, absolutely. And it's easier to plan for individual homeowners to realize what their bill is going to be, or have an estimated bill with respect to that, instead of, up and down type of deal. And I would be all for something like that.
Okay, are we ready to move on to the water presentation?
So just to clarify, so we're looking at, and I don't have the scenario 3 in front of me.
It's right here.
Now, the
So,
Okay, so 2%.
2%, about $18 average.
But what does that do then for our outlying, like, so now are we looking 2% this year, but 4%?
She would increase retained energy.
No, I understand that, it
yeah.
would be 2% and then retained earnings this year of 300. But if we're looking to even it out, could we then say, okay, instead of the 3% and the 4% increase next year, do we do another 2% increase next year and even that out over the next few years?
You could do, yeah, two.
Right,
To even
and
it out,
then,
you could do that.
So is
you
it,
know, and then, and then as we, obviously, we still have the retained earnings. If we need to use retained earnings, we can, but we know that it's gonna be a 2% increase every year for the next 4 years. And then in 29, we can do a 1% increase. And at that point, I would think we have it figured out what we're gonna do with our wastewater, right? In 5 years from now, we might not be doing anything, but I would think that
Yeah.
in 5 years, we should be able to put a plan in place.
You'll have a better hold on it.
right. The only thing I would, and I won't be here with you folks next year when you, but
You
I
can
would,
be on the other side.
yeah, right, I'll be complaining. But I would, you may want to think about setting it for this year and then using that additional data to think about what to do next year.
Sometimes it's good to look at both,
Yeah.
right? So go with the scenario 3, the 2%
Yeah.
and the 300 from retained earnings, with the possible thought of, okay, and not next year at this time when we're looking at the budget, but maybe in the fall, we have a more detailed discussion about what we need to be doing with some of these budgets, and not during budget season, when all of a sudden it's, well, we have to make a decision to make our budget for '25. Just something to think about.
And you can see the use too, and again,
Right.
Well, so I usually do it, I would like to do these presentations sooner, more in February or late January, because I do look at the usage from
Yeah.
the previous calendar year, so I utilize the most recent
Yeah.
usage that I can. I could start looking at it on a fiscal year basis, so there's a little bit more time to compile data. But end of January would be
and of course, that changes with respect to growth.
it changes with growth, but it would all be factored into the analysis that's done in the memo prepared for you.
Okay, so we'll look at the 2% and the 300 in retained earnings.
Look at that. Okay, ready for water?
Are you ready for water?
Good question.
I am
Okay.
thirsty.
A quick question for you guys. I know Claudia's not in a position to take a vote, but we would have to take a vote on these rates. Are we looking to
Yep.
vote at our next meeting?
I think so.
I think at this point, it would make sense to wait and vote at our first meeting in April. At least that way Brittany can, we can give her an idea of what we're looking at, and then if that works for you.
Yep.
I mean, I know you'd love one today, so you can finalize these things, but,
I think, well, hopefully we'll give you some guidance, I
Yeah.
think,
yeah.
Yeah, I think you can come and lay a clear picture for us.
Yeah.
Without necessarily having to.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Okay, so moving on to water. Again, we're expecting a deficit of about 476 for FY '25. The subsequent years have been projected out based on assumptions and so forth. So these deficits obviously are a little bit larger than sewer. So like the sewer enterprise fund, this was just a quick analysis as to what a rate increase would look like over the next 5 years to cover the capital projects and operating budget. going forward.
But not all the capital, right? Not the big ones.
Nope, this would include the big,
Does this include the ozone?
it
and-
is, because we would borrow for the ozone. So the 21% would cover the principal and interest payments.
For the borrowing?
For the
Okay,
borrowing.
That's not a separate okay.
Right, right. So
Okay.
it would be included, principal and interest payments would be included in the budget now for the next 20 years,
Okay.
or whatever capital's in that year.
Okay.
The memo's been updated just to reflect if we're able to kick out that water tank another year, depends on the inspection. And then the increase was projected at 25, and it went down a little bit to 21%.
that. Okay.
With Hopkinton's $1 million coming in. So this would be about a $50 impact a year for water.
No,
At the 21% increase.
Michael, am I wrong? This is just, Hopkinton's still gonna get it out, but they guaranteed us that 1 million for this year. What happens after this year, that year is over with? Do we have to find another
The
way to,
3% amount, dollar amount.
cover that $1 million that we were getting from Hopkinton? Because that would be in our budget, correct?
Well, so I believe that $1 million is part of their town meeting.
Yeah, I believe they're going to town meeting for a request for the $1 million already.
That's for Hopkinton. I'm talking about like,
Scenarios.
once that year is over with and we have that,
That's what I needed, thank you.
if Hopkinton decides to tie in with the MWRA and not use our water,
Are you talking
we're,
about
we're shy of $1 million because we were looking forward to anticipating that million.
Well, the million is a little bit separate than the operational cost, but Joe, you bring up a good point, because
Yes.
if the town of Hopkinton no longer needs to use our wells, because right now, currently, they pay 25% of the operating costs based on how much they draw. If that goes away, presumably you're not drawing as much water, so you're not, putting as much wear and tear on the plant and everything, but that's in theory. I think in practicality and reality, we would have to make up that revenue or a portion of that revenue
Right.
somehow.
Okay,
Yes, we
because,
would lose about $240,000 to $250,000 a year.
okay, so
if
that's
they
something
decide
we
to
would
opt
have
out.
to make up some way,
Yes,
shape, or form,
yes.
either through rate increase
Right.
or our own water usage, and it
Right.
goes that way. But if we have another rainy season like we had last year, it's a catch-22, because we're not using the water, but we're
Right.
not generating revenue as a result of it,
Right,
so.
we need the perfect season, is what we
Yeah.
need.
Let me just add that if they just continue that, our chemical costs and so our cost to run the plant would go down.
Okay.
It wouldn't actually be, we would be losing that 250, but we wouldn't be spending as
good.
much because we're not creating that water for Hopkins.
Yeah, so for those
But
who
it would be
can't,
on a one-to-one basis, I think.
oh,
Gotcha.
I think.
so just so the audience at home, the water superintendent, Dan Marr, is just pointing out that the operating costs, should we stop servicing Hopkinton, operating costs will decrease a bit, but not as much as our additional
Income.
costs, but
Yeah.
it will be offset a bit. Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
You can come on up, Doug, if you like.
It's real quick.
Okay.
But Joe just used the word guaranteed about the $1 million. Just so it's clear, it's their portion of the project. It's approximately $1 million. It could be 900, it could be 1.1.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
whatever 20 to
Okay.
25% is of.
Whatever that money, but that money would be guaranteed as a result of the.
And what's the
MOU.
retained revenue in the water fund right now? Is it 2 million as well?
It's
Or 4
around there,
million?
yeah.
You put it in here, I'm just not
Yeah.
seeing it, sorry.
Yeah, it's about 2 million.
2 million. So we have another
It's on page 6.
fair amount of
Yeah.
retained revenue available in this one as
Yep.
well. Okay.
And Brittany, just a reminder, Brittany's original request and presentation was, I think, a 25%
Yeah.
increase, which I think was a $60 increase, if I remember correctly. Sorry, I'm still looking at sewer.
Brandy, did you have anything you wanted to say, or questions?
I'm just trying to go through I'll back up in the notes.
Yeah, right, there's a lot. And I
There
did,
is.
while you're thinking, it just, just a note that Brittany did put a pretty detailed, all the developments coming online and their various contribution to the revenue, which is very helpful. So, thank you. Go ahead, Brandy.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find where in the packet it is. I'm sorry. Everything
That's
is
all right.
kind of, because I did have some questions about sorry, Mike.
No, we're all in the
Still
same, we're all trying to get through this.
Yeah,
of data.
sorry, I'm still wading through sewer, you know?
A lot of information.
Yeah, so I know that there was something in here about the billing tier, I believe. And if I remember correctly, like, we had talked about usage had gone down with water, is that correct?
The average usage, yes.
Yes.
Has gone down.
Okay. So, do we think that that's like a trend that's going to continue, or do we think that that's pretty much leveled off at this point? Like, do we think that the revenue shortfall that we're looking at is that you know, basically that we will actually meet those numbers, if that makes sense? I'm sorry, I'm trying to dig here.
I'm hoping to meet the numbers for FY '24.
Okay.
It'll kind of come down to the summertime again and whether or not we're in a drought or it's a rainy season. I tried using an average of the user usage over, I look at a calendar year basis, so I look at calendar year 20, God, what are we in? What year is it? 23? Yeah, January to December of 23. In order to put this together, then I also compare it to prior years just to see where we're at. It's a little tough to see where the usage is coming from. It could be developments. I know we've had developments come online. There's also factors with the weather that play into it as well. I'm hoping that we'll see a little bit more in revenue. It won't be that much more. But it all comes down to the summertime.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and also, you know, just in general, like, we were kind of talking about this the other day when we were talking to Dan at the water treatment plant. And, you know, I always hear from people who have like big families that have higher usage and complain about like the higher rates that, you know, if you use more water, you pay a higher rate for some of that water. So, you know, I always think like, you know, we need to put out some education. I always like want to try to get people to use less water,
Right.
Which probably doesn't help from a budgeting standpoint, but it makes me feel like we're getting more information out there. But I do feel like, you know, if we can help educate people about how to lower their water bills, we might actually, you know, maybe people can, you know, help themselves a little bit more too, even though even if we need to increase the rate of the water. So I just wanted to put that out there because I think it's an important component to water usage as well. So.
Yeah. Thanks, thanks for pointing that out. I'd forgotten about that. So, Brittany, so, you know, you have your scenarios here, but the rate increased 5% through 21% in the average bill. How did you work the tiers into that data?
So the tiers are included into a large workbook that I have. I don't think I have.
So if we're saying, you know, you raise it 21% and the average bill is going to be $353, right? How does that, do you average the tiers somehow to come up with that?
Yeah, so attachment C on the memo, it breaks down. I
Okay.
input all the usage per tier, and it breaks down what the average person would use. So,
Okay. All right. So this is some sort of
pretty detailed.
average tier use to go,
yeah, I mean, this is
okay,
an
thank
average
you.
bill, an average, so it takes
Okay.
what the average person would utilize.
Great, okay, thank you. And that's, yeah, I think that's the best, you know, for an imperfect world, I mean,
I
that's,
mean, we're not gonna be able to say to every single person, this is what your bill is gonna be.
Exactly.
No,
And-
it's,
Sorry, and as we all know, that households are changing on a regular basis. One year you have 4 people in your house,
Yeah.
and the next year you have 2, and sometimes it's
Right.
consistent or not consistent.
So Brittany, just, I apologize if you went through this, but she laid out these options. So there's 1 through 5, and the
Yep.
options are 5% through 21%, and the basic variable how much retained earnings is being utilized, right? So
That's
it's-
correct.
It starts, we could go as low as 5% and use 485,000 of retained earnings, and the 21% is at zero use of retained earnings, in line with Brittany's feeling that we shouldn't be using retained earnings, so.
So this 21% would only cover fiscal year 25? Or,
Okay.
yeah, I think it's
And then
only
there'd
fiscal
be
year
another-
25. Yeah,
okay.
and then 26, we'd be looking at another 16% increase, so if you want to talk about smoothing out the rate increase over the next 5 years as well, I don't know the averages of these
And
increases,
so
but,
there's 2 million, I think at one point you said there's 2 million in retained earnings, you talked
Yes,
about.
yes.
997.
Yeah, so if you use, say, 500,000 a year, it lasts for 4 years. I think
Right,
you
we'll-
made
we'll
that
wipe
comment.
ourselves out. Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
all right. Other things about the water fund, what are any thoughts, thinking about how to approach this?
I think the 21% is certainly better than the 25%. I agree with, for this one, not using the retained earnings. I mean, unless we used a little bit, like I'm looking at scenario 4, if we did a 20% increase.
see, I was trying to be mindful with the sewer, knowing that has a larger impact on the
Right.
taxpayer, so
Yeah,
I was
that's a big
I was more
one.
mindful on the sewer.
Right.
Using more retained earnings. Water has a less of an impact,
Yeah.
but still an impact.
Joe
nonetheless.
or Brandy?
Well, Brittany, Brittany, thank you. You just almost answered my question, because you said if you don't use the retained earnings, it's, it's a plus, but, I feel like we're taxing the people to keep, a savings account for the future, and that's not what the enterprise fund is actually based for. I mean, it's for emergencies, things that come up, and to keep, the balance of a water bill to be, palatable to people. Again, 21% in 1 year I mean, I like the idea when we talked about the sewer rates, to keep it flat. I mean, this is now we're doing peaks and valleys again. And it goes against what you were talking about with the sewer. So if there's a way we could keep that plateau
yeah.
right across the board, I mean, I would be in favor of that, and I don't know what that figure would be within the 5 years that you have here between the 5% and the 21%. But, I mean, I would feel more comfortable going something in between and using some of those retained earnings to offset that deficit.
If anyone has their phone on them and wants to average it out.
Yeah.
for-
Let's, Brandy, anything else on the water before we tackle the trash fees and?
Yeah, the only thing I have a question on is, so, the retained earnings for water, we have a lot of capital that we need to, like an infrastructure issues that we could potentially, I think that's going to be sort of like the big thing for water. Like, we have all these capital projects on the horizon that we need to do. The idea of, I mean, I hate raising water rates on anyone at all, but I feel like if we don't kind of have a mind to use those retained earnings for, unplanned water main breaks, or, if we do have to do the Cedar Street water tower, there's going to be a lot that's potentially,
Interesting.
I feel like the use for those retained earnings is much closer on the water side than it is on the sewer side, if that makes sense. So, I worry about, spending down the retained earnings
So-
too much.
So you asked if someone had a calculator. Claudia's watching and listening. If we did 11%, to even it out over the 5 years,
I
I don't think we'd have enough retained earnings.
Yeah, I think we would.
well, because if we're using, if you're looking at this chart with 10%, we would be using 375. 11%, probably a little bit higher, or I mean, a little bit less.
10%.
But Claudia had the similar question that I did, is like, how do you determine what you want in your retained earnings, right? Like I said, for our rainy day fund for the state, for the town, our goal was, I think, 10% of our budget we want in a rainy day fund should something happen. And maybe that's something we need to look at. Okay, looking at what our potential capital costs are, what should our retained earnings be in these enterprise funds as well in regards to what we want to use? I mean, to everyone's point, right? Our ratepayers are paying in based on their usage, but obviously our costs are not as much as what they're using. Otherwise, we wouldn't have retained earnings.
Exactly.
So how can we find a balance there to have retained earnings to do some of these bigger projects, but also not make as large a hit on an annual basis with our rate increases?
So in terms of, are you guys suggesting that this is something we should take on as part of this process, or think about for the future, or?
I mean.
You set the base now.
I think we look at it for this cycle, but again, like I just said a little while ago, don't wait until January or February to have this discussion.
Right.
Look at our capital stuff and what our needs are, and try to.
And I don't know if we'd be able to meet like a fall timeframe, because that's the end of year for you.
Yeah.
Mid-July to probably the end of September.
Yeah.
I'm not
just
saying
don't have the
exactly the
capacity to
fall.
do it.
I'm just saying that I feel like we're sitting here, and it's one of those things, right? It's not until you sit through this a couple times you go, oh yeah, it really, when we're not having to raise rates,
Right.
It's like, okay, this is our rate. Okay,
Yeah.
it's all okay. Let's just keep moving
Everything's good.
forward. But when you start having to raise rates, certainly these amounts, you start going, oh, wait a minute, is this really how we should be looking at it? That's all.
Right.
So I just want to point out
Yeah.
though, for sewer and water though, there's so many assumptions built in. If you do a 5-year, like a 2%.
Right.
That's assuming that the developments are going to come online.
Of course.
And so forth, and the inflation's not going to go out of control again. So there are a lot of assumptions built into it.
Right. I think there's inherently a lot of variables here.
Yes.
You've done a great job of trying to incorporate, but they are variables, and that's where I go back to, looking at this every year and seeing where we're at and adjustments. But anyway, okay.
Yeah, because I mean, that's a good point. I mean, we're in this situation with the trash fund. So we
Yeah, we just
expected
did
a
it last
certain
year.
amount of revenue coming in.
Right, and we didn't get it. Even with the increase in bag fees, we didn't
Exactly.
see the revenue we
Not
expected.
yet. We may see it.
Not
though.
yet, not
Right.
yet.
We still have some time.
Anything else, Brandy, before we push on to everybody's favorite subject, the
Claudia.
pay as
Well,
you throw?
what direction do we want to give Brittany?
Well, do we want to do that now or wait till, one thing I'm thinking, we have 3 different things, and maybe we should look at them all together in terms of impact and what we want to.
Well, I don't know that Brittany's going to be able to give us the full impact, right? Like, right now,
No,
I'm
no, I
making
mean
notes.
us. Like, if we say, are we going to raise all these? Or are we going to maybe say, I'm going to make a push, not a push, but I'm going to suggest that we look at these all 3 together and their impact
Well, right,
on
so,
people.
so right now, right, we said, okay, instead of the 3% for sewer, we're going to do 2%. Okay, that's an average of $17.68. For water, and I don't know if you did this one as well, and I'm not finding it, right now you're saying 21%, and that's about $50.20 per person. Okay, well, what if we go to 20%? We understand what we'd use for retained earnings, but what would that be? Right, did you
I would, I would push for a lower
have something
increase.
break the,
Yeah.
or the 15%, like what would the per,
So,
The average bill, you mean?
yeah, what would the
Yeah.
I
average
could
bill?
calculate it. I didn't calculate that one. I only calculated the 21%.
21%.
but-
so
Right.
21%, so 20%, it would go up $49. Excuse
Okay.
me, 48.
Okay.
And then if 15%, it would go up 30.
Okay, so.
35,
30?
excuse me, 35.
35 if we did 15%. Okay, okay.
But that, if you do 15%, you're using 250.
Right, 250 in retained earnings.
Right.
Right.
Which to me is like, I would even go lower than that, but that's where I want to look at all 3 together and what we're putting,
Right.
moving to do.
Okay,
And
but that now for water, so we have $50.20 for 21%, about $41 for 20%, and $35 for 15%. Okay,
Yeah, okay.
okay. I think now we can go to trash.
Trash, okay, go ahead.
And whoever is waiting, we apologize. This conversation is obviously taking longer than we expected, but it's an important one.
Is,
Yeah, everyone who is supposed to be here at 8 and 8:20 are here, so.
oh, yes.
but
And we're here
We're
at
gonna
8:50.
finish it.
We're here
so.
for 8:50, so.
So, what is it? Oh,
Was trash first?
yes, in
In our
the
packet?
packet,
Yes, it was.
So while these guys are getting ready, I'm just looking at her. Just a little, we did increase the flat fee and the bag fee last year by
Yeah.
50% and 40%. We had a lot
Yep.
of discussion about that. And now I think let me know when you're ready, Brittany.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So yes, last year we increased the flat fee by 50% and the bag fee by 40%. This was enough revenue just to cover the FY '24 deficit. So we knew that we were gonna have to relook at this year. So the FY '25 revenues and expenses, we're looking at a deficit of approximately 100,000 for FY '25. Wow. It's gonna be a fun commute home.
Is something going on?
Wind.
Wow.
Very windy.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, so the next 5 year of deficits are, you can see on the slide. So the forecast assumptions, we're looking at a 3% cost of living wages, 4% increase in the trash removal costs each year. So that 4% is factored in throughout the remainder of the 5 years, but the contract ends in FY '27, so the 4% is a placeholder for '28 and '29.
Yep.
I can't see. It's right here. Let me move this. There we go. So for FY '25, the proposal would be to increase the flat fee by 15% and the senior rate by 10%. The increase for the regular ratepayers would correlate to a $31 increase in the flat fee
Annually.
annually.
Okay.
And for seniors, that would correlate to an $11 increase. So combined, this would generate about $158,000 for the town.
And that's
just-
the flat fee.
And that's the flat fee.
Okay.
So this was requested at the prior meeting, was reviewing the tonnage, I think maybe by Brandy or you, Yolanda. So in reviewing this year's revenue, FY '24, the first 6 months, it looks like we're on track to collect about $100,000 less than what we budgeted. And looking at the tonnage did go down the first 4 months, and it appeared that recycling did go up, not percentage per percentage, but then the tonnage goes up drastically, November, December, January, February.
Just very recent data.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is this data is this year.
Fresh.
And it compares
Fresh.
it compares it
Fresh
to,
trash data.
yeah, it compares it to last year. So I don't know how many bags people bought last year to get them through this year, but I would anticipate there being,
They're gonna run out soon.
yes, a correlation in the increase in the bag sales. I just don't know when that's gonna hit. It could be the next 6 months of this fiscal year, '24. It could be next year. I don't know, but it seems as though we might be 6 months to a year behind every single year with the bag fee. That's just an observation, and people's behavior is very hard to
Right.
analyze. Is there anything down there? So with that said, I am optimistic that the bag fee will go up. It's just a matter of when. So I would,
revenue.
bag
Yeah.
revenue.
I was gonna say
yes.
optimistic that the fee will go up. I don't know that we want to be optimistic
No.
about that.
The bag cost. I'm hoping that sales will go up a little bit. So I would recommend increasing it by 15% for FY '25. Now, I just want to say, if at the end of FY '24, it really does come in a lot lower than what we anticipated or budgeted, I would probably come back before you to increase the flat fee to cover that.
For next year.
For next year, I would probably visit you sometime in September or October.
So we would adjust it through in the middle of the year,
Yeah.
the flat fee. So, and we're gonna stay with the 2 billings?
I'm not sure yet. We just have to coordinate with our treasurer collector on
Only
when.
because I saw your
bills
data
are due.
on that, and the fact that we're only at, I think you said 85% for the first bill,
Yes,
and that went out
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of lag time in when people pay, which is typical.
Yeah.
I paid mine.
But I think that now that there's 2 installments, people might take their time a little bit in paying the second bill, and that can go into the next fiscal year, which will throw off,
Yeah,
all kinds of things.
I'm not
All
sure how
kinds of
important it
things,
is
which
to
is-
divvy it up, but,
you know, it's a timing thing more than anything.
yeah. All right.
Um,
Brandy, thoughts on this and
Yeah.
trash or?
Yeah, no, I appreciated the data on the tonnage, because I think
Yeah.
that really is important information. And because I was wondering whether or not people were just throwing out less trash, or if people were doing the hoarding bag thing. And
No.
I think we have our answer to that. So when I was looking at the different scenarios and the different percentages and things like that, I was trying to kind of come up with something that was, and I ran out of time, to be honest. I was trying to do this today. You know, I know you're proposing a 15% increase in the flat fee for households, and then 10% for seniors. And, you know, I know that, you know, we do try to keep the fees lower for seniors. I know I had mentioned it would be great to be able to do something that's more based on income versus age. I know that's probably a nightmare to manage and administer, but you know, at some point, it would be good to kind of know if that is even a possibility at some point. I know it's not for this fiscal year, so I totally get that.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out if we decreased from 15% to something like 12% and did the same for seniors. So instead of 15 and 10, we did something like 12 and 12, if we would make up if we would be able to come up with the revenue for the deficit. And I didn't get to the point where I could make that totally work, but that's kind of what I was thinking, was something a little bit less than 15% for everyone, basically.
Yeah.
Because I think, I know there's not enough senior households to make up for there's a lot less of them than the regular households, but I do think I would want to do something that has parity across the board for everybody. But that's just my
gotcha.
perspective.
You know, I'll throw something out here as we're, get it? Okay, no one got it. Doug thought it was funny, at least
If
I
you
got
have to ask people if they got your joke, Rob.
I know, it's bad.
Yeah.
So, the one thing I want to introduce this idea that, you know, we looked at these last year and looking at these 3 major funds. My suggestion is, because we're looking at a couple things, tonnages going up, which to me indicates, one, there's a revenue source from the bags, but also that people maybe should be thinking about recycling a little more, and we should be thinking about how to encourage them to do that. Also, we looked at this last year and did a fairly hefty increase, and I think your deficit that you're projecting was what, about over 100,000, just a bit over 100,000?
For FY '25, so this
just-
increase would cover the next 3 years.
Yeah, so the other thing I'm proposing is we think about 1 year and review, because we just did this one, and that why don't we just raise the bag fees by your 15%, which gets us what, 80,000 or 100,000?
I'm not opposed to the bag fees, so that the flat fees would
I know.
generate enough revenue to cover the FY '25 deficit. And if the bag revenue came
Right.
in or didn't come in,
I
it
understand.
wouldn't impact
Your
25.
job is to be conservative, make sure we have the money. I'm looking at it a little differently, because I'm looking at the public undergoing a lot of inflation stress, and I'm trying to figure out how we can minimize our impact on that. So I certainly appreciate your position, but I think one of the things, we're looking at across-the-board increases here. One of the things we should think about, rubbish, just increase the bag fee, give people the incentive to not throw things out, to recycle more, and see how that works next year. We'll probably, I think your projections alone from bag fees will cover the projected deficit, right? For
No,
next
so
year.
I think that we'll collect the bag fees that I budgeted for this year into next year.
Yeah.
But we won't collect enough bag fees for what we budget or increase the bag fees for 25. I don't think that will,
Yeah, I think if we increase the bag fees by what she's recommending,
I thought
and
you,
don't increase the flat fee, I don't think we're gonna generate enough income to cover our costs, based on what Brittany told us.
theoretically, if people are buying the bags,
Right, if they're buying
yes,
the
if they're buying
bags,
the
yes,
bags,
if they're
but
not buying the bags.
based
I thought
upon the
you-
data,
but I thought your projection for the bag fee increase was around 80 to 100,000, 80,000 to 100,000. Is that-
yes, that's
Yeah.
assuming that people buy the bags though, starting July 1st.
Yeah, which we're, yeah, right, so it's a bit of a, there's nothing certain about it, but
Right.
I'm not sure it has to be certain, because we have retained revenue. So let's, if, in worst comes to worst, we spend some of that. I'm just looking at
How
the
much
big
is
picture
retained?
here,
Hold on,
and,
let
you
me
know,
look at the price ones for the.
Yeah.
you do have some retained revenue in trash, right?
The other thing you gotta think about also is if you increase the back fees,
15%, that's what
yeah,
Brittany's projecting.
15%, but, you
That's
know,
what she's requesting.
if you want to look at increasing it more, let's just say.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah.
So one of the things you've gotta be concerned about is illegal dumping.
Right.
And
That's
so
why
that's
I'm not,
just something-
I'm saying that, and maybe it shouldn't be 50, maybe it should be 10%, but I think Brittany's deciding that 15% is a kind of, and I tend to agree, is an increase, but it's not gonna throw people off that much. We're likely to, they're likely to continue to buy.
So the
bags.
additional cost, Brittany, I'm sorry, that you provided us, that's a 15% increase for the large and small flex bags. And that generates a total of 116,281, and that'll take care of the deficit just for this particular year.
If we collect all of it.
If we collect it all.
collect it.
If, and we understand.
And
If we
that's-
collect it,
and-
if
and-
we collect
And I
it.
get that. But that doesn't leave anything for the following year.
No, so
So-
this recommendation covers the next 3 years.
So 15% each year prior, each year after?
No, there's hold on, let me go to my last slide. It would cover the deficits through FY '27,
Okay,
and then the next increase wouldn't be until FY '28 and '29.
so this 15% will take care of right up until,
Right,
2027.
and the bag
And the bag,
increase
yeah, okay.
will take us through the end of FY '27.
And you've
Okay.
also got, and we're looking at a year or two, I guess, gap in terms of developments in their housing developments, which is what you did. But after 2 or 3 years, we're starting to see revenue coming in for most of these developments, right? So we got a bit of a gap to cover.
so that's what I was
Okay.
gonna ask Michael. Like, 101 Main Street, Chestnut Street. They don't do their own trash collection, it'll be town collected?
No, they would do their own.
Okay, so we're not generating any interest, any money from them?
Not for
Right.
trash, but
Correct.
we
Not-
also
not for
aren't
trash,
generating
but-
any expense.
Right.
And,
Oh,
And
okay,
there's
yeah.
no
For the
additional
trash.
dump
I'd
fees
forgotten
or anything
that,
like that, right, okay.
All right.
well, that's one thing, you know, so we support the condo communities with trash service, but they're starting to opt out, I think. Yeah, I was at a joint association of condo communities meeting last night, and one of the things that they said is that they had just, a couple of the, you know, that's like 4 different associations, I think 2 of them voted to, you know, do their own trash service, just because it's more convenient for them.
So if
Doug, that's
that's,
probably new information to you, because I just
Wow,
found that
that's a
out
big
last night.
deal.
Yeah, well, they voted for it, so.
so that will
Oh, I didn't
affect
realize you-
our revenues.
Yeah, but again, it would also then impact our
Should affect
costs,
our on the
right?
expense
We're
side of
losing
the
the
ledger,
tipping
too.
fees, right.
Yeah.
We would gain the tipping fees because we're not generating the tonnage.
Correct.
Okay. Well, so in terms of this, so we're running a bit late. How much more discussion or things do we want to talk about for these 3
I
things in
think-
terms of next meeting's
I think we
vote?
have information, but I'd like to take a little more time and go through some more of this.
Sure.
On my own time.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, it's interesting, Brandy, you said 12% and 12%, and that was in Brittany's documents as well.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, there was
Yes.
something about a 12% increase in in the documents, because I'm like, oh, that's interesting that she said 12%.
Oh, that was for FY '28.
Oh, okay, oh, yeah, never mind.
I thought it was all 5% sliding
Yep,
scale.
you're right.
Do you want to give us a dollar amount, like for a total increase for all of those?
Well,
So,
we're
like-
talking about trying to add all these, right? Like, how much do we want to add to people's, do we think they can
Additional
afford
fees.
$100? Do we, additional, do we, where are we at?
You mean for all three together?
For all three
Oh, that's
together.
interesting.
Right? Well, that's
Interesting
what
thought.
we were talking about.
Right.
Yeah, so, I don't know, I still think for the trash, we should just increase the bag fees by 15% and leave it alone. And then the others, if I'm remembering, the water that was the one with the big increase, but it's
Correct.
not I would, I think we should look at least for the next year, use of these retained revenues to offset a chunk of that. I think we talked about going down to what? And then Claudia's, you in touch with Claudia?
Yeah,
so-
she and I have been,
Yeah, did she want to unmute and say
no,
something?
she can't.
Okay.
And she's now gone. She had to
Oh,
jump
okay.
off, so.
Poor
So,
thing.
so one thing
Quick
with that
question,
point,
do we have retained earnings at all on trash?
Yes,
So we have less than 300,000 in trash. So over the last 3 or 4 years, we've used about 800,000
Of our,
to-
of our
of our-
trash retained earnings.
to balance the budget. Yes.
And that's that's to take care of the deficits over the year?
Over the last 3 years.
well, remember, the
Okay.
projected deficit next year is only, what, 105,000 or whatever, 118. So
So-
we got 300 in retained revenue.
so I guess what I'm saying, if you said to us, hey, we want to keep the total increase for these three
Interesting.
enterprise funds less than $75 or $75 or less, we would have to use retained earnings, but we could come up with a plan
that's an
that
idea.
would help you.
I think that's,
Randy?
I mean, because I think that's where you were going, right? You were like,
Yeah.
let's look at all of these.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And I think that's,
Okay.
yeah. Brandy, what number
Yeah.
feels good?
I think, I don't have, it's difficult for me to kind of like run numbers right now, but I think if we can, if 75 is doable, I know we were kind of going back and forth on water quite a bit. So, but if we can figure out a number, I think 75 sounds right to me, but again, I don't have my
Sure.
notebook. I'm kind of,
Yeah.
Well, it's a
Yeah.
working
So
number.
I think, so if we could add all these together and we don't increase more than
Right.
75 annually, and I would say that's with the flat fee, because the bags, we don't know, right? We
Well,
can't-
I would push back on that because we want to, like, the trash is different from a lot of these because we're trying to encourage certain behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And my position is to put it on the bag fee because we want people to decrease what they're throwing away, to increase recycling, and we've got a solid waste problem that's not, this is why we're having this problem every year. So we got to look at how to decrease, and so we should give people the right incentive, I think, instead of increasing everyone's fee so there's no incentive or that everybody pays.
Well, why don't we try to keep the 75 with the bag fee? Obviously, we can figure out the average, what an average household would utilize. Why don't we try that?
Okay.
I
Right,
don't
sounds
have
like
a
a
problem with it. I
plan.
think that's a fair and equitable,
Yep.
because it hits everybody. It doesn't eliminate certain groups or whatever, it's just right across the board. And that's fair.
All right. Brandy, you ready to move on?
I'm ready to move on.
Okay, thank you. All
Thanks,
right.
Brandy.
So thank you all. Where are we in the agenda?
Thanks, Brittany.
I think we
So I believe
have the
it's Helen and
long-suffering Helen
We
and,
still have 3 things that we're supposed to get to before our 8:50.
oh,
So
Beth.
I think the cemetery discussion can be relatively brief.
I think so.
Because Helen and Joan.
Have left
and the
us?
rest
Oh,
of
there they are.
No,
Okay.
And the historical commission had
Yeah.
presented a lot of information, and what the board had wanted was them to come, like, work with us, like Doug
Yep.
and I, to come up with the plan.
Plan and costs,
a
right? That
plan-
was a big
plan
thing.
Hey, thank you guys for coming in and bearing with us. Yeah.
And they, so they provided a lot of that information previously as
Right.
part of your
Yep.
part of your packet. And then Doug and I have worked with them and have got a workable plan that we think can help. So,
Okay.
So do we want to, I think this is a
I
great
think they
project.
need
Do
to-
we need to talk to folks about it?
They need to
Go ahead,
update us
Helen.
based on what we asked them.
Helen and
It's
Joan,
fine.
go ahead.
Hi, I think that the packet pretty much, I think, explained all of the costs that we can anticipate at this point, and, you know, how we're planning to, there's a pretty good explanation of how we're planning to run that. You had asked for sort of a mock-up of the cleanup training weekend, so we've kind of included all of that and some of the information from TNT to give you an idea, you know, of who they are and why we like them. And, there's a bit of a, I think, an Excel sheet here with pretty much like you can just sort of look at that quickly and kind of get an idea of what all the costs are. And I was thinking maybe you'd have questions. I wasn't really planning on doing as much of a presentation tonight as I was planning on answering questions about the information we sent. So.
Okay, thank you. Questions, thoughts about it? I know I have to confess, I spent a lot of time on the enterprise fund review and didn't spend a lot of time on looking at their plan, but.
Well, from what I have seen and read and discussed with you folks at the last time you were here, you guys are very thorough. I just get concerned about the fact we're gonna do all this work, and I'm hoping, are you gonna do a presentation in front of CPC to get funding for that as well?
We do plan to go to the CPC, probably next year, yeah.
Okay,
Or for next year.
okay, all right. Because, I mean, I know that's a historical piece of property, and we have an historical bucket. I don't see why this whole project can't be funded out of that particular barrel.
Yeah, I think this year, Michael had said that there was a lot going on this year with CPC, so we sort of kind of put that off because we didn't
Okay.
really have all of the cost expenditures yet,
Yep.
which really, once we go through this cleanup training weekend and we get a better idea of how much work has to be done professionally as opposed to what the volunteers can do, we'll have a better idea of what the total costs will be so that we can not only approach CPC, but we can see what we're getting in donations through our fundraising
But
effort.
there is a
that-
cost associated with the weekend, right? The Spring 24 volunteer weekend, $2,000 to $3,000 assessment.
Yes, and we have that covered. So we have that covered. We have the
Yes.
survey covered.
Okay.
Yep.
I think we have everything we needed for this year was covered, and we were also anticipating, once we get approval from you, that there may be some additional money coming in. We can't guarantee that, but we would be hoping there would be some additional money coming in through some donations that our fundraiser will be doing.
Okay.
So
But
the
we
extra,
already have those costs covered.
so Helen, the extra time will give you folks more time to prepare actual costs and the work that's going to be done by volunteers and see work's needed after that work is complete. Is that right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
Okay.
so Michael, you're saying that the funds that are here, we're looking to cover with the Gustafson money
With the
because it was put into
Gustafson
his, okay.
Yeah, and donations if
Yep.
if we
Okay.
need to, but I think
Okay.
all of it can be covered under the Gustafson.
Okay,
Okay. I
Okay,
think I'm good to make a decision.
yep.
okay.
Brandy, anything?
No, the information in the packet was really thorough, and I
Yep.
think it kind of filled in a lot of the blanks that and questions that I had from when you were here last presenting it.
Yep.
So thank you guys for taking this initiative on and wanting to do a lot of
Absolutely.
Yeah,
this work yourself. So
very
we
much
appreciate
appreciated.
that very much.
We probably need to take a motion to, okay. I move that we approve the moving forward of the volunteer program presented by the Historical Commission for the cemetery project.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, say aye. Or
Aye.
raise hand.
We need to do
Yeah,
a roll
roll
call
call
vote
vote.
because Brandy's
Oh,
remote.
right.
She's out of the
Good
room.
point. Yeah, she's out. So go ahead, Brandy,
Kinsman, aye.
Vignani, aye.
Greaves, aye.
share aye. So that's 4-0
Yep.
with one member absent.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Does that cover it, Michael?
Yes.
Perfect.
Thank
Good.
you, guys,
And
very much.
thank you for
Yes,
doing all
thank
this
you very
work.
much.
Thank
I
you for
just
your
make
patience
your work?
tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Can I make one quick comment?
Yep.
Sure.
First, I just want to say that we appreciate your support, but we also appreciate the Board of Health and the Conservation help and the DPW. The DPW is very receptive, and as shorthanded as they are, they're willing to do a lot with, as long as we're considerate of their time, and we certainly will be. So.
Great, thank you.
Thanks,
And
John.
I'd like to also add to that, so we're very excited for the community as well, because this is a very, solid community project. And we are utilizing a lot of volunteers. So I would love to invite everyone on the select board and anyone who's listening. We'll be putting out the information. If you would like to come and join us, we would love to have you.
When will you be doing the work? What's the weekend?
So we don't have the date because we were waiting for the approval. So we
Okay.
will be coming up with that very shortly, and I will
Great.
let everyone know.
Perfect.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. So, very nice.
Okay.
So the next item is Beth Reynolds with an update plan on the former police department building. So that's great. Let's wait and see what she says. Go ahead, Beth.
What did you say, John? Oh, okay. We might maybe make that happen for you, Joe. So thanks for having me here tonight. We've been doing a little bit of work planning for the police station, the downtown police station, 137 Main Street. And I'm here to just sort of give you an update of sort of what overall, just a very general overview of sort of where we're at with that at this point. So, as you know, there has been a great need in I would say the last year especially, for additional parking spaces in downtown. We have a lot of new business owners, lots of successful businesses in downtown that just are creating a little bit more of a need for parking. So we have looked at this space, and what you have in your packets is just a very rough hand-drawn sketch that I'd done, just kind of measuring the space and looking to see what we can put in there for parking spaces. So it is still a work in progress, obviously. But we also, in looking at all of this, we did look at the surveys that we got when we did the fire station, when we put the RFI out, and then consequently the RFP. In between those two things, we actually did survey the community. And we asked, what would you like to do with the fire station? What would you like to do with the police station? So, the results that we have that came in for that, basically we're leaning towards people really wanting to preserve the fire station, not necessarily the police station. So, I mean, I can certainly share those with you if you're interested in that. But, a lot of them, 209 out of 388 surveyed said yes to wanting additional parking. So just wanted to note that we did have some feedback from the community. So what you have in front of you is some additional parking, but we would also put in a pop-up park right in front to sort of just to keep with the aesthetics of downtown, and to really kind of, screen off that asphalt, basically, just to make it nice and green in the front, and to soften that parking lot and those needed spaces. So there would be that nice small park there in the front. There's a beautiful tree that would remain.
I was going to say, is that the green area
Yep.
where the sign is?
Basically,
and then the tree? Yeah.
build it right around that tree.
Cool.
And then it would just lend itself to, a place for people to stop and sit, have a cup of coffee. We could have events there. It would be a nice addition to the holiday stroll and the tree lighting. So there's a lot of opportunity there, as well as adding in some additional parking, making it nice and safe. We are adding a fence to the rear of the building along the train tracks. That land was just surveyed. So we will be adding that shortly, just for safety purposes. We don't want anybody going.
Well, there's no fence there now?
No.
No, there never hasn't been
hasn't
for
been.
years.
And that's interesting. Yeah, well, that's it, but isn't it usually the T's responsibility to have a good fence? I mean, that's my understanding, so I don't know. There's not even a chain link fence?
No.
Oh,
You
Not
don't
on
know.
that side.
Yeah.
There is on the other side.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, sorry to interrupt. But, one of the things to think about, I mean, should we be, talking to the T to, like, put in a fence? I don't know. Are they missing a fence that whole stretch? Does anyone know?
I don't think that all of the train track has fence.
Right, but
Think
this
about
is
past the
downtown.
farmer's market.
Yeah, no, but, well, that's another issue, but, okay, I don't want to interrupt what you're saying, but it's just surprising to me in the downtown area, there's no fence. That's a little unusual, I think.
On that section.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Go ahead, Beth, I'm sorry.
No, so that is, so we're looking at adding in, well, I believe there's about 18 spots there now, to 20. We are looking to be able to increase that to about 30 to 35 spots.
And
Double lots.
Yep, they would be angled
yeah.
parking, very much like what's out in the town hall parking lot.
Yeah.
Yep, it would look pretty much.
so, and just looking at this sketch, so the in and out would be where it is now. That wouldn't get
Yes,
changed.
correct.
So the parking that's along the the firehouse, would that stay?
Yes, so
Okay.
that's part of the Clover Roads plan, is to
Okay.
create a seasonal outdoor patio there.
I thought that was in front. but
No,
this
that's
is-
so that will still be there as well. So they are building out a knee wall there.
Okay.
And then, but along the side, so what they found was when they spent a little time at the fire station,
Mm-hmm.
there's no sun that hits that front patio that they're
Oh,
going to build.
interesting.
It will never be in the sun. It is in the morning. It's lovely sun in the morning.
Not
Yeah, but you're not
beer
sitting at
drinking time.
at a brewery in the
That
morning.
Not during
Okay.
beer drinking time, no.
So they really were looking at the side, so they're in front of the planning board now to add a seasonal patio right on the side there where those spots are, and then they'll be removed in the winter months for parking closer to the building.
Okay.
So that will be still an in and out at that location, and then the parking lot would actually be a one-way. So you would
Yeah,
actually
I
go
see
one
that.
way into the parking lot and then out.
Okay. Do we have a cost estimate?
No,
No. Okay.
What
just
do we
really
think of-
trying to get an idea of
Yeah.
how you feel about this.
Just,
I mean, what I would say is, in one of Michael's surveys or in one of your surveys, put this out to the public saying, this is what we're planning. What do you think?
Would you also entertain putting solar panels up like the ones that we have at the high school?
Sure,
In their parking lot?
Oh,
So to generate
interesting idea.
additional,
it's an interest, downtown?
yeah. You're gonna knock the
can
building
certainly
down, and you're gonna have open,
entertain
you'll have open space. Why not?
People have asked about EV chargers as well.
Yeah, I mean,
And so we could do a
sure.
couple
Yeah,
EV
yeah.
charger stations.
There's programs now through the state
Yep,
for
Right.
new EV chargers to
Right.
get grants and stuff.
Absolutely.
yep, yep. Good, that's a good point.
yeah. Beth, just in terms of the parking on the railroad tracks, are you thinking of any plantings back there to kind of screen the tracks or to make it?
That's where the fence will be.
Yeah.
So the fence will go right up
So
along our property
all
line.
the space is used up, there's no space for
Right.
margin, okay.
There's also parking there for lunkers too, for their employees and stuff, so.
4 spots for
Right,
lunkers.
yeah.
Yep.
Oh, is that
Which is
deeded or
directly in the
something?
back area
Or
there,
the-
yeah.
An
that's part-
agreement, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, an agreement with the town.
All right. Well, I know you got a lot of things juggled. It might be interesting to try to screen the tracks with some kind of plantings if it'll fit, but,
So
you
the
know, I
only
haven't
problem
seen it.
is, Rob, is that when the parking lot will go right up to it goes right up to the property line.
You need that space.
So it would be on the state property if we wanted to screen it.
Okay. Yeah,
on
yeah.
that
So you don't
side.
think you can set back at all? I mean, I guess so. You
Not
don't-
unless we want to put the fence on state property.
No, I meant
the
if you
T.
move the parking spaces back, you
Lose
might,
parking space.
We'd lose
parking.
parking.
you would lose the, okay.
Yeah.
Randy had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brandy.
Thanks. I was just thinking, like, timeline wise, what are your thoughts as far as, I mean, obviously we'd need to put something out to bid and things like that. Are we looking at this year for this project, or is that, what's your thoughts on that?
Michael, you want to answer that one?
First step is getting money, right? So,
That was gonna be my
and
question.
actually, that's one of the things that we talk about later under TM reports is actually our legislative budget requests for this year, because that might be some, we might ask for money. That might be something that we could ask for money for.
That's interesting.
And if that's the case, then we wouldn't, get that until August or September.
And when will
Use any of the economic development money that we had?
I've got to figure out a whole plan for that.
I was just gonna say the same thing. We got some money specifically for rail and around the rail and,
Remember, it's all allocated, and then.
oh, it is
I
all
also-
allocated already?
So I've got to take it from somewhere else, which I
Okay.
can do, and, I had sent an email just saying that we had some complications arise out of that, just in terms of what the definition of obligated means. And
Okay.
we're still working through that.
Yeah,
so.
okay.
A quick question with respect to the 119 Main Street. Would you fence that area as well, or put some sort of barrier so that the folks that are residing there don't have to look at the parking lot when, now they just look at a building? Now that's going to be removed, and...
That's right.
Oh, the Ashland House?
Yeah,
There is a fence in between the property. They have a fence and they have green
so it's
screening.
beyond the stone
Yeah, they've
wall
got
aspect?
really huge arborvitaes.
It's on their property.
Yeah,
Their fence is on their property.
It's on their property,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
All right.
I'm good.
Anything else? So do you need anything else from us for this? Just like it sounds like a good idea and.
Joe said a sledgehammer.
Have a
so-
sledge, I'm ready.
So,
You wanna help with the demo, Joe?
That would be
You want a
fun-
brick? You want me to
You know
keep
what?
a
That's
cinder block
fundraiser.
for you?
That's a fundraiser.
well, so we've got to do kind of, Beth's got a sketch, and it's a really good sketch, Beth.
Well,
Yeah,
thank
very
you.
good.
My father would be very
I
proud.
don't know that the engineers can work from that, but I think it's a
Exactly.
good sketch.
So, and Evan has, done some preliminary looking at this, so we'll have him
And
develop
he was
this.
on, so that was good. He's
Yes.
still here.
Yes, we'll have,
All right, that's
So we
great.
can-
Yeah, Evan's been a great help. He's, yeah,
Oh, Evan, yeah.
that will help a lot.
formalize it
Yeah.
a little bit more.
Exactly.
With that.
Right, and Yolanda said something about a survey or trying to get the design out.
Just,
Maybe you could
Yeah, I
throw
think,
something in the.
we could
newsletter,
throw
I don't
something together in the newsletter and just say, this is the plan.
know. I think we ought to
We
put
have
this
some
sketch
thoughts.
in the.
Well,
We'll have a better one.
you just got to sign it at the bottom,
The
Beth.
Historical Society.
Yeah,
I'm touched.
I'm touched.
I am the daughter of
Just gonna go
a,
into
I am the
historical-
daughter of a civil engineer, Joe, so
There you go.
I did learn a few things.
All right,
All right, thank you.
all right, thank you, Beth.
Thank you, Beth.
Appreciate it.
All right, so moving on, now the presentation for the Roadway Traffic Safety Committee update. And
We got back on.
And Joe's moving out into the audience to make his presentation. So thank you. And this was, our ongoing effort to have committees, come see us for an update and maybe spend a little more time with them than during board reports. So
I would love
Thank you,
to.
Joe.
Thank you, thanks, Rob. Thanks the Select Board for inviting us this evening. As you know, we're part of the Ashland Traffic Safety Study Committee, and I'd like to introduce the members. Some of them were not able to be here this evening for other commitments.
And one person just appeared. Is he on your committee?
Evan's there.
Well, that's
Let's
Ke-
see. Oh, yeah,
Okay,
Kevin Langmeyer,
Kevin,
yep,
Langmeyer,
yep.
Evan, yeah.
Yep, and we all
And
are.
Evan, okay.
Those two are very vital to this committee as well, so,
Okay.
but I'll get to it. Lieutenant Rich Briggs from the Ashland Police Department, Michael Duca, retired fire department worker. He works with our traffic lighting group. Mike is the expert when it comes to all this with respect to downtown lighting and any traffic lights throughout the town. So.
And hopefully he's training someone else just in case?
I would hope so.
Okay.
I would hope so. It's just like the old, water and sewer department. There was one gentleman that knew everything, Mert Walkup, and it was all in his mind, and when he passed, that went with him.
Yeah, that's not a good thing.
No, it's not a
We
good
need to
thing.
have
No, absolutely
succession.
not, right. So Donna Walsh, who was bus coordinator for the town school district, Kevin Langmeyer, Dougie Small, Evan White, Elvira Espinoza, assistant town planner, Pete Matchek, town planner, Chief Roby, Chief Rossi, and myself.
Quite a group.
So we have a very good core of individuals and their expertise when it comes to traffic and studies, far none. Ed Burnman used to be on the committee, but when he took over the job in Wayland, he had to give it up the position. So unfortunately, I took over by default as chair because nobody else wanted it. So they deal with me. The purpose of the committee has many facets. We investigate and develop safety concerns throughout the town, and as it pertains to traffic concerns, pedestrian safety, and roadway development and issues reported by the citizens. A focal point of all citizens' concerns is regarding of safety issues in their neighborhoods and in other areas of town as well. From roadway repairs to speeding issues and other safety-related matters that come to our attention via emails or letters themselves. Or we even have residents that come to our meetings and sit and talk with us. We allow anybody to come. It's an open meeting. It's on. We have an agenda and everything is for public hearing. They can easily come and sit and talk with us all and discuss their issues. And a lot of the concerns are looked at, and we try to act on them as
Actually,
much.
Joe, I'm going to
Yeah.
ask you, is the camera not on that computer that we're not seeing Joe at the podium?
Uh-oh, did I touch something? Probably. No, it just says podium. That's okay, they know what I look like.
Well, you're speaking.
They were showing it from the. But it's on WACA. When Joe's speaking, we can see him on WACA.
Oh, that's interesting.
On Zoom.
And on, okay, that's fine, and on Zoom, as long as he can be
Okay.
seen in the two places, that's the important thing, thank
I
you.
want those people to have nightmares.
Sorry to interrupt, Joe.
No, you're not interrupting at all. We try to resolve these, any types of concerns or questions or incidences that people have, and they come to us and we talk about them. Again, one of the biggest concerns is speeding throughout the town. And sidewalks, to be very honest, we've been talking about that for a number of years. And Kevin Langmeyer has been very, very responsive and very helpful when it comes to anybody that has an issue when it comes to speeding in their areas or in their neighborhoods. And we do a study. It's usually, it takes 4 weeks to do a complete traffic study with the little boxes that calculate the things that this equipment can do today is incredible. It provides the dates and times of the most prominent traffic concerns, the number of vehicles that come through, and the average speed. And it breaks the average speed down into increments of 10, 15 miles an hour, so we can break that down right from 10 miles an hour, 15 miles an hour, so we get a pretty good average as to what goes on. And in most cases, a lot of people say, oh, the cars are flying, they're doing 50 miles an hour, and they're actually doing 35, which is actually the speed limit.
Interesting. That's an
So,
interesting-
and most folks, when they get those reports, we provide them a copy of the report themselves, so that way, they may not believe what we have to tell them, but we give them a copy of the report so they can see it, firsthand. And if they don't believe it, then what we'll do, when we have time, because there are other studies that we have to do in different other parts of towns, once all those are completed, and again, it usually takes 4 weeks, it's a couple of months, and we explain that to the folks, and then we go back and we do another assessment of that same area. And basically, when you get the two assessments, they're almost the same. So the people have a better understanding. There is a big push, and I know Doug will attest, and as will Kevin, that a lot of folks are looking for speed bumps in their roads, and this will slow down traffic, but it also creates additional issues. And one of the issues is a liability issue, and a lot of towns are aware of that, because if you put speed bumps on a roadway, and they're there, and there's an accident, and as a result of the speed bumps causing that accident, the town is liable. So we're concerned over that. So we make sure that, and we've sat down and we've talked with Lisa Mead over this as well. So we have a concern that whatever we do, we want to make sure we do it so it doesn't put the town in jeopardy, in the long run. Now, there's permanent speed bumps. There are speed bumps that you can put down, seasonal speed bumps types of deals. You can have the ones that are nice and smooth. They rise up and down, so they're not a great impact, but if you're going a high rate of speed and you hit one of those, you can go airborne, no matter how smooth it is or whatever. So we have to be very careful. We don't want to put anybody in harm's way as a result of some of the things that we see or people think are a solution to a particular problem. So it comes down to a lot of things, and it comes down to manpower. Basically, people want more radar in their neighborhoods. They want to see more police officers' presence. Well, that's great. Our police department is down manpower right now, and, they can't be at the same place at the same time, daily. There's other locations in town where their needs are required, so I know Chief Rossi has done, and as has Deputy Chief Venchula, have their men and women go out and do, different radars at different times of day throughout the town. And so we're dealing with an issue right now, which is current. And you probably saw the sign on Water Street, not a throughway, because there are people that are using that as a cut-through because they don't want to go all the way down to Pleasant in Maine and use the lights. So the folks that are traveling east on Pleasant Street, heading towards Maine, they're the ones that are making that turn and coming down through Water Street. And it, it's very narrow. It's kind of, wide turn. And you have delivery trucks and you have other vehicles that are going probably a little faster than the 20 miles an hour that is required to go through that area. So there have been some concerns, and one gentleman is very vocal about it. And, we're trying to appease them, but, it's a public way. You can't stop people going through a public way. You can put signs up to help slow people down or whatever, but it's a public way. So we have the legal matters that we have to be concerned about too when we do things. So if we put a sign up, we come to you folks to get the okay. We just did one on Acton Road not too long ago. It was a stop sign at Pine Hill and Acton. We got the okay to do that, and that's resolved a lot of speeding coming down Pine Hill in that area. So I'm not Pine Hill, I mean Hilldale. So that works very well. So we're trying to meet all the needs and the concerns of the residents, but it comes to manpower and basically money. And so the committee's trying to do the best they can, and crosswalks and sidewalks. We have a new crosswalk that's being built, thank you, through the state on Cordoville Road. I'm sure if you pass by, you've seen that already. That's not a solar-powered one, unfortunately, so we'll be taking that over. And I know Evan is waiting for the okay for that from the board. So at some point, maybe at our next meeting, we can take a vote to pass that so we can get that okay and done. We have a new crosswalk up off of Edgewood Road on 135, and you saw the caution signs that, making people aware of it.
Yeah.
That's part of this process that we're putting in the sidewalks along 135, hopefully starting late spring, late May.
So on that matter, so
Yep.
so there's already a sidewalk on the westbound side, just past the gas station, right?
Correct, but that doesn't go all the way.
I understand that.
Right.
So where are we adding sidewalks
So
to get to the crosswalk?
I'll let Doug
Okay.
explain that for you.
The new sidewalk is going to be eastbound, pretty much from the State Park Road all the way down to just across from Indian Spring Road. And there'll be another crosswalk there as well.
Okay, good.
And
So
then
then why did we put the crosswalk, if we're gonna extend the sidewalk down to Indian Spring and we're gonna put a crosswalk there, why did we put a crosswalk up by the other road where there are no sidewalks?
Because that's where there will be a sidewalk as part of that. We just did that right now because we have a lot of students that want to get to the other side to walk on the sidewalk that's currently there. And that's
So they're walking on the, so now they're gonna use that crosswalk
to get to the
to
sidewalk.
get to the, so they'll be walking in front of the Valentine property on no sidewalk to get to the sidewalk.
Correct. Yeah, and unfortunately, that's
And we
the
couldn't-
safest route right now that
Okay.
we've looked at. It's not the best route, but it's what we can work with, and if we feel comfortable that it's safe enough.
Okay.
So, but that's, believe me, we've had
two
many
crosswalks.
discussions over that, and we finally made that recommendation. So these studies, like we said, when we do the traffic studies, take 3 to 4 weeks, and we get a more accurate resolution and conclusion to what people are looking for.
So I have two
Yep,
other
sure.
questions. So in regards to where next sidewalks are going, I know it's something that's Doug's been working on. is the traffic study committee working on that as well to determine, based on requests and needs, where the next sidewalks are going in town?
Well, that's something that we'll be sitting down with Michael to go over. We know the biggest one right now was Route 135 because of
Yep.
because of the students that are walking to the Mendez school.
Okay.
I mean, the middle school, and also the state park, because now we're having people park along 135. We see people parking at the middle school to walk up to the state park over the summer because the
Right, because the parking is full.
because the parking is
Okay.
full. And we don't want, Mr. Hicks and his
But-
family to
but
have
we
to go through
haven't-
what they went through
But we
past summer.
haven't determined, so have we determined that we're just gonna do sidewalks, right? We're not gonna make that multimodal,
I think
Right.
that's what we ended up.
correct? We just
Right.
said we're gonna just do sidewalks.
As of right now.
Doug is shaking.
We were not able to.
Okay, okay.
The engineer that looked at it said that it was,
It was just
the
too.
utility poles are the issue.
Okay, and then my other question, this goes back to what Joel Arbeitman brought up, and I thought we were getting these, the 4-foot signs about bike riders. We're seeing them on, I'm seeing them in all other towns.
Yep.
And I think I saw one on
We have some, right?
Porterville, but that's a state road. Have we put these on our own roads,
I'll
on
have to ask,
entrance
I'll
into
have
our
to ask
towns? and-
Kevin,
My understanding is we were getting them, or we
Yep.
were waiting for them at some point.
Kevin, you can, yep,
I received those prior to the winter. We didn't get them on schedule, so those are for the springtime.
Okay.
We have 16 of those signs, and we have them
great.
mapped out to go around.
Perfect.
Good, thanks for.
But I have them on retainer, but that's a spring project after the marathon.
Okay, perfect.
Before we get to, Joe, is there anything else you want to say, or anyone else on the committee wants to say anything to us about their?
I know, Evan, if you have anything you'd like to add to what we've talked about?
No, I just, there's a contact from the state that's just asking us to accept the ownership and maintenance of the crosswalk signals on Porterville going forward. So if we could get that on the next meeting, that would be helpful.
And that's just the one as you're on Porterville, just before you take the right onto.
Right, it's right
Oak.
by Johnson.
Right,
yeah.
okay.
And you see,
And that's so that, because there's a sidewalk on one side, and then there's a sidewalk on the other
On the
side,
other
and this
side, correct.
crosswalk is now gonna get you from one side to the other safely.
and use it, and be able to use the sidewalks that are there,
Correct,
that are
okay.
currently there without any additional sidewalk,
Great, no, it's good.
so. Thanks, Evan. And I don't know if we can vote on that tonight, but
It's not on our
That's not on
agenda
our
to do
agenda,
it, so I
but-
think we'll just need to
Okay.
add it to our next.
Any other Brandy, did you have questions or thoughts?
Yep. So first of all, thank you, Joe. That was a good a good presentation and summary of what you guys have been up to. Quick question. I know that we've talked before about putting in a crossing signal at Fountain and 135, and that's on your radar as well, correct?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
A pedestrian
is-
crossing signal? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because now because there's no real medians in the road, high school students are literally running across 135. So I was curious what, from a timing standpoint, what that might look like.
I wish Mike Duca was here, because Mike was involved in that aspect of it, and unfortunately he's not here this evening, but,
Do we own those now? That crosswalk at 135 and Fountain, those are ours now?
that's all ours,
So I know they
yeah.
were temporary at some point, and then we asked to keep them permanent with the public
Right.
safety building. Okay.
And I know that Michael was talking to Pear when we were doing the public safety building, and they had come up with some preliminary design work for that intersection. But that, I don't know where that's going to go right now. Yeah, do you want?
Hi. Yeah, so that intersection itself, the first thing we're doing is we're actually going to do a temporary patch to get through the marathon. The next step is we have to replace the water main right there, so that's hopefully going to be part of this capital request for this summer.
Okay.
And then next year, hopefully, we're going to be able to break ground and reconstruct that entire intersection and put in some crosswalks. So you're looking at least a year, maybe 2 years, depending on
Get all the work.
funding and all that, yep.
Great.
Great, thank you, Doug.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So I hope that answers your question, Brandy.
Yes, it does. And then as
Okay.
far as like budget goes, I mean, I know sidewalks are, you know, a big capital line item for us and things like that. But some of these smaller projects, do we have funding set aside for things like, you know, stop signs and
This was my last item on my, did you read over my notes? Probably did. You always do. The last thing I just wanted to talk about was the funding of some of these projects that we have available, that we're trying to do. And I know Kevin is very much involved in purchasing and procuring of some of this material. You know, like street signs, solar powered crosswalk signs, posts. I mean, they're expensive. And Kevin, if you can give us a brief summary of how much it would cost just to put, like the solar powered crosswalks that we have right downtown, how much it would initially cost the town if we need to put additional ones throughout the town. Good.
So a request to have an RFP put in with just the initial signs, the solar signs themselves at the crosswalk with an additional advance warning ranges anywhere from $7,000 to $8,000 for a complete system. And that's just purchasing it. That's not install and time.
And power.
et cetera.
Right. Right. Well, if they're solar powered, then they're pretty well,
Still gotta wire
self-maintained
them.
that way. Right. They're not hardwired in.
So is this kind of something we appropriate every year as? like, how do
It
we-
would be nice. It would be nice. I know that street signs are expensive, and, you know, Kevin, it not only does, you know, it costs to get the signs and the posts, but like you just said, you just mentioned, you know, manpower to dig and get everything done, and it takes time away from the regular duties that are involved with the DPW. So this additional work that they have to do as well, because they'd have
I would-
nothing better to do.
I would consider it's part of their duties, right? It's not
Well-
it's not as consistent as other things that they do.
Right,
But
but-
putting these things, it's part of their duties.
And changing some of the sign locations
Right.
after we do a determination that maybe, you know, the sign needs to be moved, so it's.
Right.
It can get a little bit, sure, go ahead.
So, I'm sorry, Joe.
No, you-
So Yolanda, just so you know, so Kevin's position right now, his title is Stormwater Tech / Traffic Control. It's a fairly new position
Yep.
that he's been in for the last 2 years. It's a new thing for the town of Ashland. It was much, much needed.
Oh, yeah.
Kevin's doing a terrific job and all this stuff, but as far as funding for a lot of these things, so right now we have the 150,000, I think it's ARPA funds that we've been using. On top of that, we use Complete Streets money, but as far as the regular operating budget, there's some money in there, but it's not,
So
you know, but we.
Oh, no,
funds.
and I
Really
wasn't
get
saying that,
creative.
but.
No, I was just asking.
Yeah, so actually, and that goes to my next question. So 6 years ago, we
Yeah.
did the whole Complete Streets project. We had
Yep.
funding through the state, through, I think, MAPC. We had a whole list of projects.
Yes.
We've done some of them, certainly Elliott and that whole area. Is it time to revisit that? And/or is the Road Safety Committee looking at that list of projects that were identified all those years ago and then adding stuff to it and then potentially applying for more grants for complete streets, if there's still money available?
It's time to look at it, but it's
Okay.
almost like we already have we're looking at Cedar Street sidewalks
Right.
next. I mean, we kind of have a direction we're heading in.
Okay.
But, yeah, and it is time. I mean, so year one, which we just finished, which took about 4 years because it's part of the downtown project.
Right.
Is done. That's done. So now we're looking at putting in an application for year two
Okay,
for the Complete Streets funding.
okay.
So,
But I think we also we do need to start being more realistic about what we can take on and what we can do.
No, I agree, right? So I mean, that's the conversation we always have, right? So we have these projects that are winding down, but we don't want to overload ourselves so much. It's a balancing act because we have to figure out, we don't want to stop the Complete Streets projects that we're working on, but we need to figure out what we can do with manpower and things like that. But
Yeah.
I guess my question is, is the review of it and the potential for grants and things like that, is that something the road safety committee is doing? Or do we want to bring another group back? You know, I'd be willing to sit back on that and review it again, you know, and bring other people in.
If you give us that charge, I don't see why we wouldn't be able to do that.
Okay.
But I think, you know, to your point, I think it's, you know, we should think about the process, and if we want a wider body or a wider group to have input. And you guys brought up two very important things, sidewalks and complete streets. And I guess I'm kind of wondering the overlap with the comprehensive plan process, because these are both things I see as kind of long-term
Right, it's
projects
part of
that
the
are.
transportation review of
Yeah,
the comprehensive
yeah.
plan. Oh, yeah.
So, you know, so, and to you guys, so what's your role interfacing with the comprehensive plan and part of what
So,
you
I
know
mean,
or
the
what?
comprehensive plan is maybe a year, 2 years away with getting,
We're in our information gathering phase,
okay, so it may even be longer.
Well, I
That
think you
doesn't,
guys should definitely be part of
Well,
that
by
process.
next year, we're presenting the comprehensive plan.
Yep,
So
okay.
I guess from the comprehensive plan perspective, we need to look at sitting with someone from your group. Well, Ed Berman's on our,
yeah, but Ed's not part of our group anymore.
oh,
He isn't
Okay.
part of our group, but he, I mean, he could also tell you what he's done and what
Yeah.
we've done, but
or we
he
can.
doesn't know
or
what the
we can
future
bring you
holds. or what
guys
we're
in,
doing.
or we
I
can do,
think-
yeah.
yeah,
we
Yeah,
can-
that's
we
fine.
can-
These
We'd be
guys are
more than
really
happy to sit
involved
down
in
with
a
you
lot
In
of-
guys.
regards to the transportation
Yeah.
perspective
Yeah,
of it.
I mean, we'd be more than happy to do it, but,
I think
you know,
that's
the
important.
funding is the big issue.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know, again, people are
Well,
looking for this
But
certain
that's where
things. and-
going for state grants and
Yeah.
complete street.
Right.
Like, we were able to do, we got, I think the first round, we got $425,000 that helped us do Fruit Street, Elliott Street,
Right.
and the,
Speed zones around the
the speed zones around the schools and the ADA compliant ramps and all that
Right.
stuff, so.
Right.
So here's my question, I guess, to Brandy and you about the comprehensive plan process. So people presumably are identifying, oh, I think sidewalks should go here, or I think this needs certain things. And some of it interfaces with what these folks are
Right.
doing. So how does that kind of, how do we kind of integrate
Well,
that?
as we
or-
identify these things, right, and as we're getting ready to write the comprehensive plan and say, okay, this is what's been identified,
Yeah.
we will go to them or ask them to come, or as we're having the discussion on transportation
Yeah.
and infrastructure, we would certainly include
think so,
their
yeah.
committee.
Yeah, that, we'd be more than happy
Yeah.
to do what needs to get done. Because, again, the basic line is, the bottom line is, we're all doing this for the safety and community of the town, and for the residents to enjoy the, you know, being able to walk here, there, and everywhere, and have our students have a safe walk to school, to and from. So,
Great.
you know,
Any other?
Assuming we're eligible for all these grants.
Yeah, I was gonna ask Joe if he had any questions, but he's up there.
no, my question is, we could use the extra
I
funding.
did
That
have,
would be- that would be
well,
good.
two things. I do want to encourage you guys to look at the speed bumps very closely and the liability and the weather. I know there's issues with the weather and stuff, but, you know, I've seen them in other towns, very effective on
Yep.
certain back roads. And, you know, we do have an enforcement issue. The other, and, you know, with police time and things like that. The other thing I want to kind of put in your head is, you know, the traffic camera for speeding tickets or other enforcement. And we don't, I know Massachusetts right now doesn't allow it. I've had a discussion with Representative Lewis, and there seems to be a lot of pushback. But I've seen it work very effectively in places. It worked on me. I was a
Yep.
victim of, I paid New York City of like $200 from my kids speeding
And
down.
I'm sure they were very thankful.
Yeah, but I mean, it's an easy process. You get a $50 ticket in the mail, they have a picture of you speeding somewhere. They say some technician certified that you were speeding. If you just pay the fee, you'll be done. You know, to me, it's like, what a great idea.
One of the concerns about that is the privacy of the individuals that are driving and how it can be abused.
Well,
And profiling. I mean, there's a whole bunch of
Sure.
things that can come out of this.
I'm
so-
sure there's
And we've
issues.
had
That's why
this
you get
discussion.
pushed
It's used
We-
not only in other states, but in other countries with no privacy issues, with no concerns.
yeah,
with- I mean,
well-
like,
Don't forget what state we live in.
yeah, I know.
Okay.
I saw a picture of my,
I'll leave it
I
at
got a
that.
good picture of my daughter's boyfriend speeding in my car, so I was on to him, so.
How long was he the boyfriend?
It's actually.
About
good-
$200
good
worth.
news. Yeah, $200.
Well, thank you guys for allowing
Anyway,
us
well,
to
thank
come
you,
in.
and thank you all for your efforts.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thank you for
thank you.
supporting us. We
Thank you for
appreciate it.
coming and giving us the
Yes.
update. Thank you
Oh,
for the work
my
that you're
pleasure.
doing.
Thank you, guys.
It's
Thanks for
very
showing up,
important.
guys.
Yes, thanks for being here. Did you have another comment, Evan? Your hand is raised.
Or anyone else
Yeah,
up there?
just, it was in response to you talking about the grants. We actually do have a couple of grants applications out right now. One's for ADA compliance on the West Union sidewalk, and the other one is shared streets and spaces. We're waiting to hear back on both of those for that same project. We're also going to be looking at putting in a complete streets application, like Doug said, for Cedar Street sidewalks as well.
Wonderful, great.
Is that the whole
Good to hear.
length of Cedar Street, or how did you, are you focused in a certain area, or? Because I've got a number of people asking me about Cedar Street all the time.
I would prefer just to do from East Union Street to Captain Eames right now, the first Captain Eames. And then I think there are too many land issues further up the street as you get towards Elliott Street and.
So East Union near the high school,
Yeah.
down
Right.
Cedar
To-
Street.
to
Okay.
Captain Eames. Now
And
that makes sense.
You got kids
Yeah.
walking to school, right? So, great.
And eventually it might link with the trail,
Yeah,
so.
it's all good. Well, thank you, guys.
Great, thank you. Thank you for that update. Appreciate it.
All right.
It's good to have the different
Okay,
committees.
thank you. So the next is an old new business process and timeline for, guess what? It's time to do the town council evaluation.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, and so.
thanks, Doug.
Thanks, everybody. So, yes, just, the town council evaluation is a little bit simpler as, compared to the town manager's evaluation. And so what I would propose is that on April 5th, so we'll distribute the evaluation forms. And then I propose that
April 5th is our
April.
next meeting, right? Is that
No,
right?
it's the Friday after your next meeting.
Okay.
So have those evaluation forms due to me by April 5th. The week of April 8th, I'll spend that week compiling all the individual evaluations. And then April 17th, which is a Wednesday, Rob, as the chair, you and I would sit down with town council and go over the evaluation. And then at your next meeting in May, excuse me, your next meeting, which
Is the
is
April 17th.
April 17th. So yes, it would be the next meeting in May. Look at, if you so choose to do a reappointment.
Okay.
Okay.
And that would be the Wednesday before the election, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Okay.
right. So because of when May starts, town meeting is.
Week, May 1st, I believe.
Oh, town meeting is May 1st?
Yeah.
Yes.
So we might have to do it, we might have to do it.
No, because then we have a
briefly.
meeting on May 15th, and then the election is May 21st.
Right, exactly. That's my last meeting, I believe, right?
Okay,
So we could do that.
So does that work for everybody?
yeah, that works.
So- So we vote to appoint or not appoint, on the 15th, but the week before, well, you have the April 17th is, okay. I just gotta kind of review my schedule, but that sounds like it'll work,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. And if not, we have a little bit of a buffer built in there between
Yeah.
when the reappointment vote would be, if you so choose, and
Yeah.
sitting down with Lisa to go over her firm's evaluation. So if that doesn't work, Rob, we can.
Yeah, does that involve contractual review at all, or like, we've never actually,
No, it's under the charter, so it's a year-long appointment.
Right.
So.
right, but we don't look at the terms of the contract or the price or anything like that as part of this process?
Correct.
We just look at the term and if we're going to renew it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I do have one question that's, I'll piggyback that, and Yolanda had just told me. Your evaluation form, we're still using the old form,
Correct.
right?
Oh, yeah, we can talk
And
about that now, if you like.
I guess Yolanda said that the form was sent out to everybody. I did not get that. That's
No,
why.
I'm not sure it's sent out yet, so
Oh.
it's too
Oh,
bad
okay.
Claudia's not here, but Claudia and I reviewed it. She did, I think, a great job in almost like automating, but it's the same form. But you guys will get it, and I'm now forgetting the schedule, but you'll get it there's gonna be a Google form sheet that everybody kind of shares, but you'll get your section, you fill it out, do the comments just like before. It will then calculate the average instead of me having to do it. It'll also collect all the comments in a form, kind of like,
Yep.
and then I'll use that. Oh, and then I guess the thing to talk about is before you complete it, or at some point in the process, we all sit down with Michael individually, presumably, I think with the form already filled out.
Yes.
Yes.
And then, once it's then finalized, it'll all be summarized through this sheet that Claudia's putting together.
Right.
But there's no change to the current form.
I have two questions / concerns. So,
Yeah.
with the current form, right, and how we've done it before is I would fill it out and I would give it to Michael. And Michael would be the only one who would see my comments and my scores.
Is that?
Hold on, let me finish.
Yeah.
So that would be and then he and I would talk about it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would change things, sometimes I wouldn't change them based on our conversation. And then I would give it to the chair.
Okay.
So are you saying now that the minute I fill it out, that automatically gets compiled?
No, not necessarily, no. Well.
Because I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah. So that's too bad that Claudia's not here to discuss it. I think she could do it so that it would stay until you finalized.
Because the other comment that I have is each of our individual ones do not get made into public record.
Right.
The only thing that gets made into public
the
record
final.
is the compiled one that the chair does. And
Yes.
as the chair, you get to read through them and say, okay, I'm going to use
Right.
this comment, I'm not going to use that comment.
And that's,
I would hope that we don't just say, okay, all the comments are there now, and that's what's
well, that
getting
was gonna
made
be my
public.
question. That's why I wanted to talk about it today. And Brandy, speak up. So, yes, it's now possible to just include all the comments. And so, I guess we need to have a discussion. If we don't want to do that, then I guess I need to know that. So,
Couldn't you limit the viewer to myself and the chair, you?
for what, all the comments?
Mm-hmm. Or, the evaluations as they get sent through.
Yeah, I think so. And again, I'd have to go back to my tech expert, Claudia.
Because to
but-
Yolanda's point, which is it's an excellent point, when you sit down, we individually sit down with Michael,
You might want to change it.
and you may want to change it, so you don't want to hit the finalize, because once you hit the
Right, right.
finalize, you're done.
Right.
So you're going to give Michael a copy of your recommendations or your evaluation that's not finalized, so that way you
Right.
can make these changes. And I don't know if that's allowed.
I think you should be able to do that just
Okay.
from a technological and
Yeah.
legal perspective.
Okay, because I
think.
don't know if Google will let you do that, because I don't know. I
Well,
really
you
don't
would,
know.
you would,
I'm not that
you'd have a
tech-savvy.
draft filled out and, whether you probably save it or download it and you print it out.
Right, but each of ours needs to be saved separately
Correct.
to go to Michael.
So what,
Well-
Can't submit it.
What's
What
that?
was
Can't
that?
submit it. I was gonna say, like a Google form, you fill it out and you hit submit.
Right,
And the
I think
submit-
because of the changes that Claudia made, when you hit submit, it now goes into the compiled one, I think.
Or it could, I mean, but you could probably also hold off, and there must be a way of doing that.
so to you, Yolanda, I think you had a suggestion here, which is, I think you could fill it out and print out a version that you have, and then we could talk
Yeah.
about it. And then if you had any changes, you could make the changes and then hit submit.
I would think so.
Right, but I just think that typically to save paper, I send it to you electronically. You
Right.
look at it and we sit and talk about it, so, I don't know, I guess these are questions we have to
Yeah,
ask Claudia,
so I'll have.
I mean, we have
talk
some
with
time to do
Claudia.
that, but I just wanted
Yeah.
to make sure
Well,
that we're
not
all on the
much.
same
I'll put on
page.
my
Not
list,
much,
I'll
not
talk to
much.
Claudia after this, and we'll, we'll make it so, but the one main thing I did want to just make sure, you guys don't want to see all the comments in one
No.
document. You want to
No.
go with me synthesizing.
That's the way it's
Okay.
been.
Yes, no, I understand
I just
that.
think that, I think it's important that you look through that the chair, whoever it is, looks through the comments and determines, you know, because if there's 5 comments that are identical, all 5 of them don't need to be there.
Okay.
You can synthesize that and say, okay, based, you know, something.
All right.
That's my
The
recommendation.
board's in agreement with, but, yeah.
Yeah. Randy, anything
Or
else
not.
to add, or?
Not.
No, I think, I agree. I think that the summary should be, you know, basically a 1 to 2 page Word doc, not a Google form, you know, output. So,
Okay.
so I wouldn't want to see everybody else's comments. I think Michael's the one that needs to see them, and it needs to be.
All right, thanks. So I'll follow up with Claudia, and we'll work it out. Okay, and we finished the town council evaluation.
Yep.
Okay, a vote to accept and sign gift of land, 0 Fountain Street rear, is authorized in November 29th, 2023 special town meeting.
I did too.
You know, so this is the Bell property, so you did have.
Yeah.
You did something, but
Yeah,
not this.
you did have the town meeting, you did do something, and I can't remember exactly what it is, but this is the next step. So
Okay.
we're at the stage where you actually vote to accept a gift of land.
And we've got, does everybody sign that?
And everybody
Okay.
signs
Okay.
that. And have the-
I hereby move that the select board accept a gift of land therein known as number 0 Fountain Street rear, Ashland, Mass., including 10,890 square feet more or less, and shown on Assessor's Map 010, Lot 0045, as authorized pursuant to Article 4 of the November 29th, 2023 town meeting, and further to authorize the chair, Robert K. Scher, to execute and enter into any and all documents necessary to effectuate the acquisition of said property.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Motion's made and seconded. Roll call vote. We'll start with Brandy.
Kinsman, aye.
Mignani, aye.
Greaves, aye.
Share aye. Okay, and so we'll sign that and pass it around.
Yeah, I've got the official version here.
Okay.
Oh, which one do you want me to sign? A different one?
Yeah.
Okay.
You just practiced on it.
Yeah, I got it. I got my first name right. Okay. All right, so while we're signing this around, the next thing is just a reminder or discussion of the marathon breakfast on April 13th,
Yep.
2024 at 9 to 11.
At TJ's for our runners.
Yep.
And that's always a very nice
Always a great
time.
take.
It's always fun.
Yep.
Very good.
Do we need to authorize any funds for that, or are we good?
I think we'd let Susan, you know, when she gets back, she can help calculate that a little bit better. And then we would come back to the board, Brandy.
Okay, that's good.
Reminder, the select board grant cycle is open. Submissions due by March 31st. Nomination papers are still available. I think the deadline's, April 2nd to get them in. Free COVID tests are still available at Town Hall. Yard waste collection begins Monday, April 21st.
April 1st.
April 1st, 2024, continues till Monday, June 3rd. No yard waste collection on April 15th, which is Patriots' Day, or May 27th, which must be Memorial Day, right?
Yes.
We did the marathon breakfast. The only, so I guess that's it for old, new business.
Volunteer breakfast
The volunteer
on
breakfast.
March 23rd at
Yes.
9 a.m. That's this Saturday.
So that looks, that's this Saturday, so it looks
Yep.
good. And one thing kind of occurred to me, and maybe something that for you guys to think about in future years, since this is we get all the town committee members, maybe it's an idea to invite our legislative delegation just to make them available, but also to have them hear what all the town committee people are talking about. And I think they'd be interested in attending that. So when you guys think about it next year.
I think they've been invited in the past.
Yeah.
So
Have we
I don't
invited
know.
them? I don't think we invited them this year.
I don't know about this year or last year,
Yeah.
but I know pre-COVID, we were inviting them because I know they both showed up.
Yeah, oh, good
So,
thing. Well,
yeah.
I think it's a good practice, and it's really, we don't, it's really, we go around the room, and
Yeah.
people talk a bit, and it's briefly, and it's a really good exchange of ideas. So one thing that, we should get back to that, I think. Okay, so consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as as presented.
I'll second that.
Go ahead. You got it, Brandy.
Brandy seconded it, okay. All those motions made in second, roll call votes, start with Brandy.
Kinsman, aye.
Mignani, aye.
Greaves, aye.
Share aye. the consent agenda. Oh, and just noted Dan, who was our star earlier today, is now on the MWRA Advisory Board. Is there anything you want to say about that?
Makes
or-
perfect
No,
sense.
it makes perfect, like Yolanda said, I think it makes perfect sense. I think you've gotten to know Dan a little bit over your last couple meetings and at your tour of the water treatment facility and know how knowledgeable he is. So it's a perfect
And what
fit.
kind of issues, I mean, just in general, do they deal with that affect, I know it's.
Water quality, the wholesale rates, things of that nature. So,
Yeah.
but it's an advisory board.
Yeah, it's good to,
so.
and it's good to have, is every town have?
Yes.
Okay, so it's very good. All right, thank you. So that leads us to town manager report.
Yeah, so, I mean, I've got a couple of things that are not listed here, but I'll start with the ones that are. So did everybody get a chance to review the 2024 goals update?
No, but.
Okay. Do you want me to go through them all? It's a couple pages, or do you want to?
What do you guys think? Is it some, maybe
Maybe
put
the
on next-
highlights, Michael?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So downtown, I mean, we've talked about that with doing the building connections, and so we're getting right of entry agreements at this point in time with the different building owners. Mendez, we're working on determining that final borrowing amount. If there is one, we might have enough money, additional money from the MSBA reimbursement to cover that. And then we also are meeting with our consultant to talk about the Inflation Reduction Act credits, solar credits, or I'm sorry, energy credits that we would be getting. Upper Charles Trail, so we did submit the Mass Trails grant application.
Nice.
Rob and Joel and Tony and Jen and Pete and Alvaro and I had a meeting on Monday just to talk about engineering and, what to what extent we're looking into.
Do we have a date for hearing on that? Do you know, just offhand? Do we have any, I just don't.
Oh, I don't recall.
Aren't they rolling grants, I thought?
No, there's a
not this
specific
one?
period,
Okay.
yeah. So town hall roof, so those roof repairs are gonna start Monday, right? So that's an important, everybody saw the pictures of the
Yeah.
beam.
Yeah.
BTA station's completed. Town hall painting and upgrades, so we're gonna look at going out to bid soon. We've already developed, or Doug's already developed a kind of a overall first draft of a scope of work. Hopkinton IMA, so Hopkinton has signed that extension. We need to put that on an agenda, and the
Sign
board
it.
would need to sign it as
Yep.
well. MBTA zoning, I think we're in a good place with that based on the last meeting that you had, the joint meeting with the planning board. Clover Road's moving along. It's still before the planning board. Jen, do you want to talk a little bit about Dog Park? I know you've been meeting with the designer.
So it's taken us a bit. So we had a concept design, and then in the middle, our designer retired. And so just trying to find another designer that's willing to sort of pick up where our previous designer had left off has proven to be a little bit more difficult than I had anticipated. We did meet with Framingham, and they just had completed
Right.
one a year ago, and we got a name. And so Peter and I and Alvaro met with Framingham and then reached out, and we've been working with the designer. We haven't signed anything yet, and they gave us a proposal through design all the way through construction. And so just trying to work on that. It's a little bit more expensive than I had anticipated, so just making sure that we have the funding and.
A lot more, or just minimal?
No, it's just a little bit, just a little repetition in terms of they're going to look at the concept, but they really will do their own design, and so there's some.
Cool.
Cool. Yeah, and so I think that's pretty much the highlights. So obviously, we got a lot going on, and a lot of great progress has been made, just thanks to our great staff. So that's the update on 2024 goals. One of the things I do want to discuss that we talked about is, so each year, our legislative delegation looks at putting in earmarks as part of the state budget. And so I thought we could just talk briefly about that. One of the things I would suggest, I mentioned it earlier, is ask for some funding for the police station in that project, and then also some money for Cadillac paint to finish that up, or the Arboretum project. So I don't know what the board members feel about that.
Would we, and you're talking about getting money from the state with respect to that? Okay,
Yeah, so
that'd be
legislative
cool. Yeah,
earmark
legislative,
for this,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, so the schedule, yeah, so we just, all right, so they're going through the House bill now.
Correct.
And, okay, so we just gotta get it to Jack and Karen sometime, I guess, the next couple of weeks or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
If they come to the
Do we-
breakfast, they'll be.
We haven't
Do
invited.
we know
them.
what we're asking
I
for?
could call Jack, I mean.
In terms of monetary amount, Brandy?
Yeah, do you have an estimate about what we need for the Arboretum and?
Yeah,
what-
between
or-
between 100 and 200K is kind of the guardrails that Jack and Karen have both said, we need to be realistic about.
So these are per item or?
Per
just-
item, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, okay, all right, so, that's great, okay.
I thought for the Arboretum it was like 100K to finish that. And do we have any idea for the demo and creation of the parking lot for the police station?
I had put in 150 to.
Okay.
I would ask for as much as we can.
Right, okay.
So,
Okay.
Is there any other?
I think those are two good projects that if we can get some funding from the state for those, I can't think of anything else. I mean, we don't have a good design, what we want to do with Valentine's. I don't think we can ask for anything there yet.
Right.
Do we think that the CPC funding for the dog park is going to cover the potential costs that, this new designer is going to lay out for us, potentially?
I don't think that the CPC would fully cover it, but that was never the intention. We would have to go and get Stanton grant funds.
Right.
But that was in the plan, right? Applying for this. So,
Yeah, it
I mean,
was
and
always
that's
intense,
one of the reasons we kept the dog park in this year, was because we need to apply for those Stanton grants before the end of this fiscal year, right? Isn't that what was?
We have to be ready to go we have to have a full design, and I just confirmed this last week with Stanton
Okay.
Grant, a full design to a panel review
Okay.
by the beginning of 2025 to be ready to go for construction in the fall of 2025, and then
Okay.
their grant sunsets completely.
Right. So we gotta get moving, because otherwise we lose half of our funding.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
I was just curious whether or not, if we thought that the price tag was gonna go up based on this new designer, if we needed to ask for an earmark of, say, 50,000 or something like that from our legislative delegation, or something to cover that gap.
Brandy, as part of our initial concept design and feasibility study, that designer did do an estimate, and I did share that with this designer in getting a new estimate, and asked him if he thought that was still a realistic estimate, and he did believe that it would be.
Okay, all right, that's great news.
It just, so Jack last year got the Upper Charles Trail earmark, which I don't think we've spent yet, right? So, but we don't have to worry, we don't have to worry about spending it by June 30th or anything?
Correct.
We're okay for a while, okay.
So, let me double check on that. Sometimes they do want it done by June 30th. Sometimes they give you all the time in the world. Like with the Cadillac paint earmarks, we had all the time.
Yeah, the sunset date on it.
Yeah, it wasn't a sunset date on it.
Great.
So
Well, that's
let me
good.
double check on that. So,
All right.
all right, so get some
thanks.
good
Yeah,
direction on
Good
that.
ideas, and if people come up with anything else, we can.
And then Jen, did you just want to cover the warrant articles?
Sure.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I was hoping to get you a draft, but there was a lot of moving parts with other boards and committees, and so, but I did want to give you at least a run-through, and then hopefully get you a solid draft earlier than even the packet. That way, maybe
Okay.
if we can still close it by our next meeting, that would be great. If not, we have the opportunity
To do it at our
to
second.
do it
All right.
at the second meeting.
Remind me, what are the issues with warrant articles? I know
Yeah, I'm gonna go through all of them.
Oh, you're okay.
Yeah, real quick. So, on the annual, we always do town reports, which is usually pretty high-level overview, and then we'll have the budgetary article, so obviously our budget presentation, a transfer to the OPEB trust, I have to confirm whether we'll have a transfer to the sped stabilization fund. Brittany and I are meeting tomorrow on that. We have an annual consent article that sort of goes through those high level, those 5 items. The only sort of difference this year is that we'll be adding a revolving account, or modifying a revolving account, so that we can take in rent from the fire station lease. Right now, we don't have an opportunity. In that way, we'd be able to build that up if there's any capital improvements that need to happen. We have the annual consent article for CPC. CPC has 2 possible funding articles. They're sort of working through the details right now. One is to appropriate funds for the design and engineering of the Dyke Trail portion of the Upper Charles Trail. I believe that they are requiring some additional information before they'll fully support that.
And you guys think we can move ahead with that? Because there's been so many changes, that something we want to be aware of.
I think we can move ahead with getting the, getting a quote / estimate for the full trail design and engineering.
Just kind of throw it out, okay.
I'm not sure we'll be able to get that in the time.
When you say the full trail, you mean border to border in Ashland, or
No,
for
this-
the Dyke Trail?
No, it would be more than the Dyke Trail, but not the full border to border. It
Okay.
would be, Rob, what did we talk about? Yeah, it was the Cedar.
Well, Joel's right there, probably champing
Oh,
at the
yeah.
bit, but-
Cedar, I think.
Yeah,
No,
that sounds
it's
right.
beyond Cedar.
No, yeah, you're right. It's to the Hopkins State Park.
No,
Yeah.
not that far.
That's basically border to border.
We were gonna,
Yeah, we'll have
Should
to
we-
get it, but.
Okay,
Okay.
you can
Yeah, I
let me
don't
know.
have my notes
here.
follow up.
Okay.
And
It's
I'm not
not-
sure, like,
I don't think it's-
time-wise, I don't know how, like, what the turnaround
Okay.
will be. But anyway, and then the second article that CPC is entertaining is appropriating funds to preserve the library. There's an interior paint in the sort of the historical section of the library. We have done some analysis on the paint, and so moving forward there to restore that piece. And then we have 2 possible reauthorizations of previous borrowings, one being the public safety building to potentially expand it to, we never had included land acquisition, and so to include the words land acquisition, and there is a balance left on that borrowing, so we would potentially be able to use that for land purchase and maybe some additional parking. And then I think you heard about earlier from Dan to authorize the borrowing for the ozone. We do a borrowing article, and it would be, the debt service would be out of the enterprise funds. And then there's 3 general bylaw updates potentially. The Historical Commission wants to modify slightly the demo delay bylaw that we've just recently adapted, just to include a 3-year. So if it changes ownership after you've done a demo delay, you'd have to do it again. And then if the determination has happened within 3 years without a planning decision, you would have to lapse and you'd have to do it again. And so that it's not, right now, the way it's read, if you do it once, it will just sort of stay with the property. The other addition that they were hoping for, but it doesn't make sense to be in the bylaw, is to add a fee to the application. I think it was $125. And I spoke with members of the commission just to let them know that it falls in your purview, so we're pulling it out of their bylaw.
Falls in our purview
In
to
terms of
add
like
that
fees,
as a fee.
the fee structure, to the
And
building.
and I still think, I don't think we technically have a demo delay. Well, we
No,
do
you
have
did
an
it-
application.
We have there's an application and a review process, and then once you get to demo, there's obviously a demo application and a fee for that.
But the demo application is what kicks it off
Right, the
first.
demo application kicks off the
kind of
demo delay.
Delay.
So then they're paying the fee, right? If they're applying for a demo, they're paying a fee for that.
Yeah, so mechanically, it might make sense to just change the demo fee, maybe, but we'll
We can
figure
take
that
more
out.
info on that, yeah.
The second bylaw is to add an additional bylaw for blight. And so that's really for blighted properties in terms of like if there's issues around a property that that people haven't necessarily taken care of their property. It gives us something to be able to.
We've tried this, but we've looked at this before, haven't we?
We've never brought anything to town meeting. So
Okay.
we've talked about this would be a nice to have. And so, now we're actually looking at it.
I think sometimes it's been discussed and then we decided not to bring it to town meeting, correct? I remember having a discussion about blighted properties.
I don't know that we ever even got to, I mean, it's not since I've been here that we've gotten to a place in which there was a bylaw that, but there's definitely been tons of discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, that we've had discussion as to whether or not we're gonna bring something to town meeting and what it would mean and.
Right.
Okay.
How did this get
Because
triggered?
of specific properties that
who's-
we've had in the past.
Who's pushing this, or where's it
Well,
coming from?
we've had complaints
guys
over
are-
the years.
The building inspector or?
Well,
the
coming in through
administration?
residents.
Yeah,
too.
but I mean,
Yeah.
in terms of you or Jen decided this is the time to try it, like how did that come about?
Well, our building commissioner is certainly on board with this, and I think he's the one who actually drafted.
Okay.
He worked with the Board of Health.
So, yeah, okay. And we've got some properties, sounds like that this has been an issue. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to name addresses.
Sure.
No,
right now,
it's not
but,
appropriate for now.
But yeah,
Okay.
there's been
So,
some,
all right.
for sure.
Okay.
And then the third bylaw is.
Sorry, motion to go past 10 o'clock.
Second.
All those in favor going past 10 o'clock, roll call vote. Brandy?
Sure, yes.
Vignani, aye.
Greaves, aye.
Share aye.
So excited.
Woo! Sorry.
That's okay. So the last bylaw is to bring back the specialized stretch code, so I think Ash talked about
Right.
that at our last meeting. And that's just bringing back the same language that was previously presented. And I know that they're doing some work, and they have a
Right.
forum scheduled or an open meeting scheduled for people to come and learn more about that. And then the last one is the MBTA zoning, which we discussed at our last meeting. And so that's just one of the things, that's sort of the moving parts to make sure we have
Yep.
it worded correctly.
And it
But
sounds
that's
good.
everything I have, at
All
least right
right,
now.
thank you.
Yeah, it's shaping up to be a fuller one than usual.
Yeah.
And the last item on town manager reports is just a comprehensive plan update, and we're still in the public engagement phase. Think we saw a lot more surveys come in over the last couple of weeks, which is good. We've had a lot more meeting in the boxes or focus groups that where we've gotten more input and more feedback. And at this meeting this week, I think we're going to talk more specifically about who's doing what and making sure that everybody on the committee is trying to host at least one meeting.
And
in a
we've
box.
extended the engagement period. Originally, it was going to end at the end of March, and it was decided because of timing and different things that we felt we wanted to have another month. So now the engagement period is ending April 26th. So there's another month for people to do their forum/meeting in a box. There's more time for people to do the surveys and the crowd mapping and things like that, so.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So, all right, that's it.
Thank you. Okay. All right, so I think that leads us to board reports. So we'll start with, Brandy, you ready to go with a board report from your remote site there?
I don't have a whole lot to report. Just, we do have a comprehensive plan meeting tomorrow. The consultant won't be there. We're just really kind of game planning for the rest of our engagement period. And then, yeah, I think that's it. I'm sorry, my brain is
Perfectly understandable. Yeah.
is Swiss cheese at this point.
Yeah,
So
right.
I'm gonna call it a night on my end. So
Great,
All
thank
right.
you.
I'm good.
All right, Joe, anything to,
Just briefly, last Friday, just want to report, and I'm sure everybody will have this, we did a tour of the water treatment facility up off of House Street treatments, and I have to tell you, very eye-opening, very informative. Dan and Jeff did a wonderful job doing their presentation and providing us all the insights about how our water looks is the way it does and what it takes to get it the way it to look and the way it to taste. And it just reminds me of the public safety building you know, it's in a scenario or a situation right now where you either pay me now or pay me later, and this, you don't fool around with water. I'm sorry, it's a necessity, you know, so you have to get it done. And hope the townspeople say that, and I'll stand up on town meeting floor to argue for that, to get this passed, because it's important. You want clean water, and it's gonna cost. But over a period of time, I think we've done pretty well as a town, maintaining the viable drinking water that we've had. So, but that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Yolanda?
I have a few things. First, I attended the YMCA Community Breakfast, as did Michael, and it was very well attended. Two big announcements. So in the federal government, $5 million was earmarked for the section of the YMCA that will be the early learning facility. So that helps. And then also the name will be something with the Hoyt family.
Yep.
For the regional YMCA, so that was nice. They've really supported the Y in various ways, so those are two of the big announcements that came out of that event. I was at the college fair on Saturday trying to get people to fill out stuff for the comprehensive plan. Michael was there as well as some other members. I'm going to be at the Warren Literacy Night tomorrow night, also for the comprehensive plan. A couple of other things coming up that people might be interested in. On April 4th, it's the 100-year celebration since the marathon started in Hopkinton.
Oh, yeah, we should talk about that.
I don't know if any of you received invites.
Thanks for bringing that up.
I know we were all invited last year.
Yep.
When we celebrated the last 100 years ago that Ashland covered it.
Right.
So if you haven't received an invite, I know Michael said he was going to look to forward it. I can as well. Tim Kilduff from the 26.2 Foundation said we should,
So he
everyone
was
from
in
the
touch
select
with
board.
you?
I saw him at the YMCA breakfast.
So, so Michael asked, and, we should get an invite, and I think, put it on our schedule.
Yep.
And Michael did, and thank you for bringing it up, so Michael brought up this idea of a gift. Do we want to talk about that now, or what do we think?
Yeah.
I think so.
So, yeah, I saw Tim at the Metro West Visitors Bureau breakfast the next day.
Oh, okay.
And he said, he talked about the event and said, hope you all can attend. But one of the things he said, it'd be really nice, if Ashland was able to do something, not as extensively as what Hopkinton did
Right.
for us last year, but, something for them to, just to commemorate the 100th start of the marathon from Hopkinton. Right. And I suggest we have a clock, just like with a little plate, in recognition of, 100 years of the Boston Marathon starting in Hopkinton, something to that effect.
But it all started here in Ashland. So.
Yeah. So,
I think that's a great idea.
Trying to have a positive attitude.
Yes, of course.
With a little zing to it.
We'll find a zing.
You have to have a
find
zing.
All right, so thank you. And Brandy, you're on, we'll do that. Yeah,
That's
we'll get the
April
invites
4th?
and we'll see if we can make it, yes. Very
April
good.
4th, it's a Thursday night, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Two other things. So March 28th, it's a Thursday morning, Metro West Regional Collaborative. We have our regular meeting, and we're going to be getting an update on the I-90 interchange, if you're interested in hearing that. If not, I will bring an update to our next meeting. And the last thing is, if you've never been, 495 Metro West Partnership has their Day on the Hill. It is scheduled for Wednesday, April 24th from 11 to 1. And it's an opportunity for local officials to go to Boston through the 495 Metro West Partnership. It's a great day to sort of meet your legislatures. I mean, we do that anyway, but just to meet with other representatives from other communities in the 495 Metro West region.
Great.
So if it's not on your radar, try to put it, and if you can go, great. And I believe that's all I have for
Great,
tonight.
thanks, Yolanda.
You're welcome.
I just had two quick updates for the MBTA. One is the fare reduction proposal is moving ahead. I believe the full board approved it at the MBTA. So that'll be something that's going to go in to the state legislature. Just a reminder, that's the 50% fare reduction for low income, and that's moving ahead. That will be a legislative budget item. So at some point, we may choose to support or not say anything about it, but I would suggest we think about supporting it as it goes through the process. And the other thing, we did have a commuter rail subcommittee meeting last week, and it was an interesting presentation from the T. Just briefly, they're pretty much saying commuter rail ridership is close to pre-COVID numbers again, but it's a different ridership. It's not the traditional commuters. It's weekend, off-peak service workers, and they think they've been very successful in changing the schedule so that people use it around the clock or during the day and weekends with all their different incentives. So they're looking at ridership numbers approaching the other earlier measures. The other thing they talked about, or the other thing that came up, was the spring schedule, and just this could impact us. Worcester is pushing hard to restore their Heart to Hub Express, and they're pushing to make it faster by not stopping at certain towns between Worcester and Framingham, for example. So there could be, and they are actually, there's a number of legislative delegations talking about. So it could impact us to the fact that they're under, the T is being pressured to remove stops to have that express go faster, and that could mean we could have maybe one less train. We could not have the express stop here, which is a good thing for our commuters. So that's something I made the case that Ashland is a very major stop and they should continue it. Maybe there's some other stops they should get rid of. I won't say which ones, but so there is that. So to the extent that I did talk to Representative Lewis about that, and there's a series of meetings. The T thinks they've done the analysis. They're not sure they want to drop all these stops, but Worcester's pushing hard to do that. So. Did you have something you wanted to say about that?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that why would the T not stop at their biggest parking lot?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Between Worcester and Boston.
Right, and that's basically what I said.
Well, that's true.
Well, they I think they are analyzing and looking at ridership and boardings and trips. So I think that's in our favor. But I did want to throw that out there. That's under active discussion. And I don't know, Brandy, do you have any thoughts on that or thinking about that?
Well, I mean, personally, I feel like the T has finally gotten it right with the amount of express trains that they're running, because they are running a little bit more than they were right after the pandemic. And so, I think having it just stop in Framingham is tough, because there literally is no parking left in Framingham.
Yeah.
You'd have to rent private spots to be able to park in Framingham, but I mean, I get why they would do that, but I am, I think all of us that live west of Framingham on the train line need those express trains. So I think it's not in any of our best interests to eliminate the stops in between. Yeah,
and my understanding is they're talking one train, the one they call it the Heart to Hub Express. And it's going to be one super fast train, I guess. And the question is, it'd be good if we were still on that.
Stop in Ashland and not in Framingham.
Ooh, well, I don't think that's likely to happen, but yeah.
Right.
There's more parking here.
Well, that's true.
That makes sense, but then again, like you said.
They don't always make sense.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you. That's my just update from that.
Any
So-
update as to when they're going to finish the work at the station?
Oh.
No. So, and they just got some light work to do, like some painting and everything. I don't have a date.
They've been working steadily. I don't know what's left of the lights, I guess, right? Is that pretty much?
Are they painting the entire?
The Battleship Gray? I thought it was already
I
there.
think they would have painted it before they opened it.
Yeah.
I think it got too cold before.
Oh.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So I think that's it.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor of adjourning, say aye. Roll call. Brandy says aye. Everybody. All right.
God bless, Randy.
Yeah,
Dave's aye.
and Brandy,
God bless,
thanks for
kiddo.
sticking with us, and Claudia,
luck.
hope you're the
Good luck,
best.
Claudia.
Hope for the best.
God bless
All right.
you all.
Good night, all. Thank you.
Night. Thank you.
Bye.